I'd like to welcome everybody to our 7th meeting tonight on Wednesday, March 19th. Tonight is our subcommittee for negotiating team with the TTA. At this time, I'm calling the meeting to order, but I would also like to just see if we have a motion for a quick break because we're just waiting on our TTA members.
Can you just note the time?
4:32 p.m. Thank you.
I hear them marching. Do you?
I'd like to take a break.
I don't want to take a break. No.
Just want to wait?
Yeah. You don't wait.
I'd like a motion for a break, but
I'm not going to second that.
that's been denied.
We're live, just to be clear.
Same spot all the time.
Dave.
Over there.
I guess I'm out.
I think you did too.
I assume I'm you. I only made 20 copies because they're very long, but we can always send a link to our people if we need to.
Hi there. So we had to briefly just call the meeting to order for open meeting law, but we could just go right into the Pledge of Allegiance if you're ready. Yep. Thank you.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome. Our announcement, the March 19th, 2024 School Committee Subcommittee meeting will be televised and recorded, may be viewed live on Comcast Channel 22 and Verizon Channel 34, or on youtube.com/Tewksbury-TV. Under the open meeting law, the public is permitted to make an audio or video recording of an open session at a public meeting. At this time, I would ask if anyone is recording tonight's meeting, please identify themselves. Nobody? Okay, moving on. Welcome. I'll hand it over to our attorney.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
How's everybody?
How are you?
Good. We're ESPs tonight.
We're doing
Beginning.
ESPs first
Great.
and then teachers. Can I, just to give you a kind of a roadmap for the evening, and
Absolutely.
then obviously what you guys would like. So ESPs will go first for the teachers at 6:10. We want to talk about the elementary prep time like we left off.
Sure.
We also, both for ESPs and teachers, we kind of made a conglomerate of everything going on.
Yes.
So we're hoping to kind of all get on the same page of where both sides are at,
Yep.
and maybe make one big document, which will be good for all
That
of
would
us.
be nice, sure.
But I'll hand it over to Madam Chairwoman over here.
Hello.
Hello.
So we have a few of the big packets, but I would like to kind of just go through because there were a lot of proposals that we made about the same article, right? So instead of countering back and forth, I kind of tried to just merge them together. So parts that maybe we agree to, parts that we still want to talk about, and then I can forward you that side-by-side view. I think that would probably be the easiest. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go through, admittedly, they're not technically in an order, because I just went by. Do you wanna give them a couple of those or no? Yeah, so we'll give you a couple of the big packets. Although this is probably in a different order.
It's okay. There's a lot of information flying around, so if anybody has organizational skills, we welcome them.
We'll do our best.
Sure.
Okay. All right, again, I'm sorry, this is gonna be in a slightly different order, but, so we want to start in, we both had proposals about salaries, not month.
Sorry about that.
Mine talks to me constantly.
Okay, so we both had proposals about salary, but not actual money numbers. We had them about the intro paragraphs and things like that. So we want to start with that. Okay. So I don't know if we already discussed this, but we both agree that the 181st workday per diem thing is a fluke typo, so we're fine with that piece of things. We're also fine with the whole, changing aides to ESPs whenever it shows up and all that. We did have a question, though. So at the end of, so it's Article 5, Section 2.
Article 5, Section 2.
Article 5, Section 2. You crossed out the paragraph about unit members work 90 days or more in the Tewksbury Public Schools shall receive full year credit on the salary schedule. Now, to the best of our figuring, that was because in the longevity section, so Article 5, I forget the section.
Yeah, it's
It's just Article 5. In the longevity part, you then added a piece about longevity counting, once you hit the 90th day. So our question is, did you essentially just move that? Or is there a different purpose in adding it in one place versus taking it away in another?
Our proposal would mean that for longevity, yes, you're correct. For longevity, you get the full year of credit, but for movement on the salary schedule, you would have to work a full year to move to the next step.
So if you worked, say you got hired in like before Christmas, right? So you'd work more than 90 days in that year. That wouldn't count as a step for the next year?
Right, but it would count as a year towards longevity.
Okay.
No, it's the other way around, I
No,
believe.
no, it's
Is it, Dave?
Do you want me to say it
You know
again?
what, let's,
Thought it was just the longevity piece. I thought that language was just confusing in the old contract about what that meant. Like, one could interpret that to mean you get a full year's salary if you work 91 days.
Okay. I think that was our confusion, is whether or not removing it from Article 2, does that
Yeah.
change because it's weird because it's in two different spots.
yes.
Yeah,
Does one affect steps and one affect longevity?
I think you're right. I think it was supposed to be referring to longevity. Years of service, like if you work 91 days, it counts as a year of service in your first year. But it was just worded kind of strange, I thought,
Okay.
in that
I believe I
original
misspoke.
language.
Yeah.
So that's for
I-
the
I
longevity
misspoke.
piece, that's fine. So then if we go back up then to it's Section 2, Article 5. You crossed out the paragraph that said, any unit member who works 90 days or more days in the Tewksbury Public Year shall receive a full year's credit on the salary schedule. We took that to mean steps.
I misspoke.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I think we proposed to delete it, as Dave said, so as not to create confusion, like if I work a half year, I get that whole annual salary? Clearly not. It's prorated. So,
Oh.
but you still get the step progression. I apologize for misleading everybody just then. You still get your step progression if you work more than 90.
Right.
It was just a clarification. It wasn't meant to deprive anybody of something they already have. in the
Okay, it's just
contract.
so if you got hired in December, they're not going to pay you what you would have
Whole
made
year's
September to
salary.
December. Okay.
Right. No. Nice to start you off in a panic, sorry about that.
I'm still confused
Okay,
by it, because
right.
it says a full year's credit on the salary schedule.
Schedule.
Which would be the steps.
Well,
it's
it's
credit.
not clear. That's
So
why
can we make it clear and leave it in there?
Okay.
that's
is
a
that-
that's a
Yeah, if you wanna
suggestion. Yeah, let's
come up
see
with
if we
something.
can, yeah.
Okay, we can rework, okay.
Salary step schedule, maybe, or something like that?
Step movement, okay. So apologize again.
Nope,
Great
that's
start.
fine. Let me write that down.
And in practice, everybody gets a step. I mean, that's been the practice. It doesn't have to be, 90 days is is the minimum for the years of service. But everyone who's hired as of July 1st
They move the next
gets a step.
Okay.
Just, I know it's a little further ahead, but there was also clarification on longevity further in this article around it counting towards years of, okay.
That's what,
Yes,
that's what
yes.
she said.
That was what we couldn't figure out, was if you just tried to, if it was a movement of language, or if there was some kind of rationale to the two, like if they were legitimately separate. So that was one of our parts. But I think Dave answered that they're separate things. So that works out.
So that one should be
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to count time, apparently.
Right.
Yeah, right, I know.
I never knew that.
Okay, so then if we go to section 5, just a little further down, we are actually amenable to most of the changes that you guys, most of your proposal, with the exception that, I'll give you a second, hold on. So Article 5, Section 5, about the long-term and the
Oh, yes.
$100 over a certain number of weeks. Okay. So we are amenable to most of that, with the exception of you replaced, in the beginning, so I switched it to ESP. So in ESP, you wrote apply to continuous substituting role, but it is originally may. We would like to hold to the word may. Otherwise, we are largely good with that.
Doesn't it say right now in in the proposal?
It says may apply to, we
May
would just
apply.
like may, because you don't apply twice. It's not something that you actually apply to twice.
Yeah.
So it's weird because it makes it seem like, usually what happens is you get asked to step up and then it becomes known like, oh, wait, this is going to be longer term.
Sure.
And so then it's kind of it's not as formal as like apply once and then apply twice.
I
Yeah.
understand.
We do post for long-term subs, though, and aides do apply. There is a posting generally. It doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
but in most cases, especially if it's very long-term, there's a posting.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have a question, though. Isn't the posting usually posting the whole long, it's, the aide wouldn't be in there for 10 days and then get posted, correct? That was our confusion, because it says after the 10 days, the aide may apply again. That's how we took it. But it's usually before, because you, right, most times you know.
Yeah, if
Right.
you know it's 12 weeks, it's posted. If it is something that it seems to be day-to-day and then goes long-term, it's generally posted.
Right.
However, if the aide's already stepped up and now wants to continue the long-term and the principal feels they're the right fit, like, there's generally a posting when you know it's going to be over 10
Right, so if it
days.
was a pregnancy, let's say, you would know it would be
Yeah.
over because they're going to be out, but if there's a sickness, you wouldn't be sure.
Right.
Right, okay, right.
It's so situational, and I can think of, a variety of ways it's gone, but generally, if there's a posting, the aide would want to apply. If the principal's going to the aide for a position, then there's no application necessary, so maybe there's clarification needed.
Yeah, we could, as you're talking, it occurs to me, we could actually modify this to address everybody's concern here by just saying, for substitute, coverage that is not expected to be long-term, the paragraph 4 applies, but for anything that's expected to be long-term, you apply, and I'm imagining that, in all cases, I would imagine that shouldn't be a problem, but we see your point in wanting not to have that language, but we also, you probably understand management's reasoning for having it in there, so I think we'll work on a way to get the language to someplace we can both be comfortable.
Awesome.
All right?
All right.
So let me just, so we're still on your proposals. So you discuss the
Well,
section 4
you
part
had
of
made a
it yet.
proposal and we made a proposal like about the same thing.
Yes, section
So
5.
I just kind of
Yeah.
blended. Okay. All right, since, in order to stay in the same vein, do you want us to just go to longevity next, because we had both made a proposal about longevity?
Sure.
So we would, I think because we both had an initial proposal about this, neither of them are truly counters, so, of each other. So we are still holding to our longevity as percentages proposal, but we are amenable to Dave's clarification of the longevity language part. Does that make sense?
Yep.
think that's all for section 5 for now.
Okay.
Skip back around. Okay. So next up for ours, oh, actually, in the same vein, I suppose, the 7-hour workday that you also proposed in the salary scale. So we have mixed feelings about the time increase, however, not about the 7 hours. We're very seriously entertaining the 7 hours. It's the professional development that is strongly opposed. Because, and I don't know if Joanne wants to explain this, but not having to attend PDs because of their lack of relevance to the life and job of an ESP, that was something that was hard fought for. And currently, any ESP who attends all those 4 days is paid, like you make, was it 1,000?
No, we made our hourly.
You make the hourly, and so that is also a, cost benefit analysis of like, well, if I go to these 4 days, but I'm still making more outside at my other job, is it worth it, especially if the PD offered is not relevant to my work with students? So looking at it holistically for the ESPs, the 7-hour workday is something that is heavily entertained right now. However, we would like to hear some more things around prep time, which we did propose but hasn't been countered yet, as well as the PDs.
Yeah.
PD days.
Yeah. Okay.
And the duties part, because that would go with the 7 hours.
Yeah, so
You won't do-
I can't address the PD, I'll have to ask the administration their thoughts on that. But as far as the prep time, I think we sketched out, like, we're willing to think about it if the 7-hour day was a concept that you all could get behind. And then we could certainly talk about how prep time fits into that. So, yeah, we would definitely entertain something about prep time for those who work a 7-hour day. In terms of PD, I have a feeling we talked about this at one of our earlier sessions about ESP-specific PD, you know?
And I think we would agree, we would really prefer it to be ESP-specific. HR Precision / Delta, FKA Delta T did a pretty good job presenting, especially onboarding, but what about the senior or the, experienced ESP? So onboarding's one thing. Reading IEPs is another level of need. We've heard from you, trying to do that. And we have been piloting PD for aides, or ESPs, I'm sorry, it's going to always be hard to make that transition. For ESPs at the Heathbrook, it's going very well, receiving really good feedback. So I think there's room for the relevant piece. I don't know if you want to add more to that, Lori?
Well, only that I would imagine that some of the PD is relevant in terms of like even implementing the new ELA program. If ESPs are in the room supporting that work, I would think that would be relevant so that you kind of know what's going on, and the instructional strategies that are being discussed and some of the changes. So it's hard for me to imagine PD that wouldn't be relevant, but I think we absolutely are talking about ESP specific, but we've all talked about how highly valued ESPs are, and I think that any content area PD or any even pedagogy would be beneficial.
Can I jump in and reply to that?
Yeah.
There was a time when we could go to any PD we wanted. And yes, some of them were very beneficial, the ELAs, the math. Then we were told many, many times that they didn't have room for us, and we couldn't go. And we were told what PDs we could go to and couldn't go to. And that's when it became irrelevant. And we fought to have that taken out. And an added benefit is we can go now if we want. We can go to the half days, we can go to the full days, if there's something we want to participate in, and we get paid. So by making us work a 7-hour day and work those PDs, we're losing that money that right now we get paid extra for. So it's definitely something we're kind of set on, but we're willing to hear.
I just have one question. I think from where I sit, if I listen to you properly, I'm hearing that you need more tools, you need more support, You need more prep time. You need to be able to connect with the teachers. You need to better understand, the individual student needs. Some of that, I think, would come with PD as well, from what I understand PD is for. I 100% support it being specific to the job you do, whether no matter what job you do in the district. I would hope that any professional development would be specific to the job that you do. So I think at least when I listen to both sides, that's what I'm hearing. If I should be hearing it differently, I'm glad you clarified some of the backstory.
And there has been no discussion around, not having any room.
Right.
Well, I understand that there's no discussion now, but that is how it went. It used to be great. We all went. We had 184 days, and then it became so irrelevant, and so you have to go here. You can't go where you want to go because there's not room. And Brenda, that happened several times.
Sure, and I would add to that, some tools like Aspen, where the aide doesn't have an account or is not
Yes.
using it, there was no relevant training for the aide in that. Or, yes, in past curriculum implementations, they limited how many
Right,
seats
right.
only to and that, was above and beyond our control. But sometimes it's the lack of a subscription to that account or the limits that were put on. But I think in the past implementations of math, and ELA, and whether it's SEI or wherever we can, we're making those things available so that aides that want it can go. So not everyone even feels it's relevant.
But we have that now.
Yes.
That we can go.
Right.
So to make us go and lose that money that we're making now if we want to go,
Well, you're not losing the money that you would, if you're choosing to go and you make the money, or if it's being included in your work year and it's an obligation, you're losing the choice, but not the compensation.
But you could choose to have another job that day that
Oh,
made you more
well,
money.
if you're working another job. I thought you meant losing the Tewksbury
so you're saying they're
compensation.
going to add to our salary to
No.
make it worth our while to go and not, because we're making extra now on top of our salary.
Well, you're making a 181-day salary.
Right.
But if you go to the PD days, you make a
We're making
184 day.
184,
Yeah,
which
what-
we're making now.
Right, what we had proposed is to just make it uniformly 184-day salary.
Right.
A salary based on 184.
Right.
But I understand Emily's point that if you work a job outside of your 181, and you'd rather spend those other 3 days at your second
Right,
job,
right.
we need to convince you to accept our proposal and say, no, it's better over here.
Right.
So let us talk
A
about
little
that.
courting, if you will.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so yes, you want to be wooed, okay, we'll try our best.
With lunch?
the 7-hour schedule, we did base on 184 days at 7 hours, so.
Okay.
So it's a
those-
package, the 184 the 7 hours are with the 184.
Right, the current schedule is based on the student day, so those half days when the students leave, you guys are off the clock.
Right.
So the hours kind of increased with those half days. And we based it on the hourly rate times the number of, times 184 times 7. So those days are paid. Roseanne, though, was right. You don't have the choice, I guess. That's what
Right,
That's the
right.
thing, yeah.
the pay's still there.
And I
It's
think
baked
it's-
into the annual salary.
And I think, as Brenda mentioned, part of our reasoning for having the 184 is we're confident, the committee's confident that it can address the desire for some prep time in there,
I think it's important to note that not all aides also start right on day one. So there's some things that are missed if you're not there on that 181st, really first. The second, based on the request to really review those kiddos before you see them, because you're right there with them on day one when they start. So it was thinking through the whole year in that process as well.
Did you have something to say?
Superintendent Rennie, we just had our last PD day for the current school year. Is there already a draft for next year? And could there at some point be some insight provided, to the TTA to be able to make, some determination? I don't know if there's been any thought.
Yeah, we're working on it. We actually have some nice collaboration with some teachers. And so I feel like, not to speak for the district, but in this proposal, this would be, a commitment made by the district for meaningful PD for aides.
And we have the pilot that's been happening at the Heathbrook, where there's been, like I said, some really great feedback
Yep.
on how that was beneficial to the role.
Yep.
That's really good.
And I do think too, I mean, 2 years ago, when I was in the process of running for school committee, I know that was a big topic, professional development for teachers, right? And so now I'm hearing 2 years later, it's just as important, professional development for ESPs. It's never going to be 100% perfect. There's always going to be people that think this was wonderful professional development, and there's going to be some people that think it's, it could have been a little better here or there, right? It's never going to be 100% perfect. But I think, from where I'm sitting anyway, over the last 2 years, there has been significant improvements on the teacher professional development and the use of that time. So I'd like to think that the same devotion, the same commitment from the district's perspective will be put into ESPs, assuming that that is something that you guys are amenable to.
And collaboration, I think what's been helpful is to have such open communication and teachers, who meet with me every month, and, we could do, something similar with the aides.
Thank you. Okay, so I did mention that we had made the proposal for prep time, and you mentioned the 7-hour day and whatnot. We are curious if the 7-hour day were implemented, like what you would think prep time would look like. I do understand that building to building, that would be different, and we do kind of have some faith in the building principals that they would do their best to schedule like appropriately, but we're curious about what you think that might look like, even if it's just at one building. So we were wondering if it was possible to sketch out like a certain person's day or something, and include that time. Sorry, Brenda.
No, I just want to go back to PD for 1 second. One thing we forgot is the HR precision aides in their 7-hour day are already attending all of the PD days. They're attending the full and the half, and it's really up to HR precision to plan, or it goes through the special ed department to plan for them. So we do want to continue building that staff knowledge. As far as a school day, in a very simplistic form, you would look at 20 minutes before the student, 20 minutes after. That's simplistic, and again, that has to come from each building on what's necessary. In talking with the principals, some schools need the time when students are transitioning to the building the most. Then some schools have said we need the time in the afternoon the most. High school, we'll share, we need probably more of that morning supervision time, but less in the afternoon. So when prep time may exist at the high school, in the afternoon after the students leave, potentially. Similar with the WIN. Those students are much more independent at the high school in the WIN, and leaving the building is a little bit cleaner than it is at the elementary. So with the supervision times, it would be around a non-structured transition, morning or afternoon or lunch recess time. And that's what exists. And then where prep would fit, they wouldn't be supervising all 3 of those times every day. So some chunk of time would be to prep in the 7-hour day.
But we're not sure it can be scheduled to coincide with the teacher's prep necessarily?
Right, I think that is the part where we're saying, I think we believe that for the most part, the principals in their finagling of things would do their absolute best to try to allot an ESP prep time with their teacher, if not for, if not every day, but so on and so forth. But one of the things that you did also propose was this kind of bulk increase in duties. So our concern is if there's this large increase in duties, which quite frankly is just supervision, it's not something active the kids are being very active, but it's not something active that the ESPs are doing, it's just supervision. If they're getting dogged down in more duties, that is then just cutting into what could be easy prep time. And so our thought is, well, what do you actually intend that to look like you just pick one building, but because then we can envision the rest, but what do you think that would look like?
I don't know if we have an exact X minutes will allocate to supervision and X minutes will allocate to prep, but we'll give that some thought
Right, well, because it was allocated last week when you made the teacher proposal and all the beautiful pie charts, it was allocated. So I don't know if maybe, I'm not suggesting another pie chart, but something to perhaps show that.
Yeah, we'll do our best to, and again, as you said, it might be building specific.
That's
And it
fine.
might have to be like, something like, you'll get a minimum of X minutes of prep per week, something like that, and a maximum of X minutes of duty. And you know how you have, you contractually, we can access you for X minutes maximum per week for those duties, but we try to rotate it around so that you don't get, shall I say, hit with the duties, the max every week, all year long. But there has to be some allowance for that, just in case,
Yep.
So we'll figure out how it can work. And the issue, I guess, would be, we just really have to account for making sure every administrator has the wiggle room to make sure his kids are being supervised at all times, obviously. Yeah, and that all IEP services and ratios are kept the way they're supposed to be,
Right, that was our concern with the principals pulling ESPs was the
Well,
ratio.
yes.
Right.
You loud and clear, heard it, yep.
I had to come back.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so then moving through, so that skips prep time, okay, and then we had, the next one you had was also in section 5, but that was the cleanup language for Dave with the 22 paychecks, that's already handled, right, we did that. However, AIDS shows up in the first sentence of that, and we just want to switch that to ESPs. Okay, I didn't really think that had to be a whole counter.
Okay.
Longevity we did, sorry, I'm going through my list. Okay, so then could we go to Article XV 15? Tuition reimbursement, Section 3?
Yep.
Okay, so it's, I'll give you a second.
Okay.
Find it, okay. So there's two paragraphs. The first paragraph, we both sort of crossed out the amount allocated, so the 5,000 per year payment, blah, blah, blah. So we're amenable to crossing that out, that seems fine. And then you added the sentence, the committee will pay portion of cost for tuition at accredited colleges, universities. So we're amenable to the replacement of that with that sentence. That seems fine. In the second part, we are okay with the sentence that the new amount will be 10,000 per year. We're fine with that. However, we would like to merge together. So we are holding to our $750, which I know is going to seem like you offered $1,500, but in the proposal or the counter that you made, it's for one course, but currently they're allowed to apply for 3 courses. And where a lot of ESPs are hired on the quote-unquote teacher track, they may be taking more than 1 course in a year. In fact, even if they're just trying to get like a license of some sort, they will very likely have to take more than 1 course in a year. And so we would like to keep the part about they can apply for 3 classes in a year, which you had changed/crossed out. And then we would like to hold to the 750 for each request as opposed to the bulk 1,500. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
Going down there. All right. All right, so then Article 8 for the personal days part. Good, okay. We're fine with the change, actually, let me just go. We both agree that the online platform part should be added. I think we did that for the teachers too, so that we're fine on. We're not sure if it's just a typo problem, but we, in the first paragraph, would like superintendent change to building principal because we understand the superintendent like kind of overrides the whole system if need be. But the building principal is in fact the one saying like, yeah, I don't need you on Tuesday, or, no, too many people are taking that Friday, something like that. So we'd like to hold to building principal. Same with The second word in the sentence being will and not may. We had proposed that part. We are fine with adding the words Thanksgiving break after November. And we're fine with changing that, the word aides to ESPs in that same paragraph, because it's still aides. And then that is what we have for.
Wait, what about not fine down here with the 4 days?
Oh, no, sorry. We're holding to our initial proposal of, so because we're not sure about the PDs or any of that, we're holding to the first 2 or last 2 days of the ESP's work year, not 4, because it would be.
So you're holding on that one
Yeah.
until we talk more about the
Yes.
work year? Okay.
Yes.
Got it. All righty.
Okay, all right, that is all we wrote.
Okay.
And I will send you the side by side. I just didn't want too many packets at once. Do you want to take a?
Yeah, I think, so I'm just trying to figure out, so these contain all of your proposals, not our proposals.
So I can explain my crazy.
Give it a shot.
I will try. So basically, like, I'm going to play the I'm new card for as long as you'll let me. But I was trying to go through all of the different pieces of paper and scanned copies of everything and put them. I mean, I fell short of having yarn going from one to the other. So I will fully admit there's probably some mistakes in here in terms of like what was countered when and in what order and all of that. But ideally what I'd like to do is I can share a copy of this with Roseanne. You can make comments in it as we need to, or you can download it as your own Word document and represent it to us. But if we can just kind of keep this running log of like what changed, because some of it was like, everything is red, but we only changed one word. So I just want to try and, you know, beautiful mind it a little bit. And there will be things that are out of order, but hopefully we can make it into a clean document that
I like that
we
idea
can
of
all
just keeping a
follow.
running log of where we are on everything.
Yeah,
And-
and I
yeah.
think helping with that will be, you know, Emily's got like a side-by-side of where our current proposal is at and where your current proposal is at, just for like quick reference. So I will also try and work on that for both units so that we can just kind of have both of them to go and follow along
Yeah.
with the bouncing ball.
Appreciate all the work that went into getting it this far. I know how hard it is to keep all the paper flying around in an organized way.
Well, it's the beauty of Google Docs now.
Yeah.
That is not a
So-
paid sponsorship.
Yeah, so I'm just going to, if we could, go back to the first page here of your document and just kind of go through where everybody is on the,
Can I just clarify, Dina, is this, so this is just your proposals to
So
us,
there
or does this
should be-
incorporate ours as well?
It does. So it has, the first set are all the common proposals and the responses back and forth. Then it goes into the unit-specific proposals back and forth that the TTA has presented.
oh, D number 1.
Then there are some small housekeeping ones in the middle, and then there's the school committee proposals at the end and responses back and
That's the part
forth.
I didn't see until just this moment. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
On the digital version that I will send you as well, there's a table of contents and there's hyperlinks so that you can easily click from one to the next and see where we go from there. And hopefully it makes sense.
that's great.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. So, yeah, so if you guys don't mind, maybe I can just go back to the first page and just see where we're at, just kind of get our minds around the whole thing. So the common proposals, we had, you had proposed the subcontracting language, and we did, I hope diplomatically reject, and I appreciate you saying not really willing to commit to this totally. I think what you did hear us say is, as far as the, and we've been pretty collaborative on this with you, you've been collaborative with us on the whole effort that we anticipate over the 3 years to make the precision aid positions, unit positions over the course of 3 years. We plan to do that, but I'm, as a management person, you won't be surprised when I tell you that a committee agreeing not to subcontract work contractually is probably not the direction I'm going to advise my client to go in. But if they ever If they ever uncontract, or if they ever contract out work, there's a bargaining obligation, so you have that protection there. What am I trying to say? Shorthand is, we reject this, but we are seeing where you're going on the delta Ts. The others, though, other subcontracted employees or services, if the district could hire those people as direct employees, that's the priority, but sometimes it can't find people, so it's.
That's a question. Is it the case that, I don't actually know another contracted spot, but let's say you need a psychologist, right? Is it practice to still post that and leave it posted and then say, oh, okay, we're gonna go with this company? Or is it, oh, this company supplies this, we'll get it from this company? Which is,
If it's a unit position, right?
Post.
Yeah, the district will post to try to find a person to take the unit, meaning the direct employment, if it's in the bargaining unit.
We'll often even post it a second time and put in the timeline or until filled. And sometimes we even go out again, but we have to seek out.
so I think that's where our confusion is, because, for example, for the one-on-ones, which are who we get from
Most of the
HR
Delta.
Precision, or whatever we want to call them, whoever they're bought by now, those aren't posted. Those are just filled by the company, and I don't know if that's like that's just the way it has been, is that if it's a one-on-one or a shared, that job isn't posted. Now, it gets more complicated when you say something like a psychologist, because there are unit psychologists. There aren't really one-on-one town, it's rare. But psychologists are a clear, or they're supposed to be a clear unit position. So there's, it's not a really full practice then, because sometimes we contract out and we don't post it, sometimes we do. That's inconsistent within the district.
Well, I think the confusion or the problem with matching up what the precision paraprofessionals do, their workday doesn't line up to what the contractual workday is for ESPs. So if you hire a person to work directly as a unit member in that position, you'd have to require them to work a longer workday than is contractually required of them, so it doesn't fit.
But the one-on-ones they don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're still only, they'll show up for the 7 hour, but until their student arrives in the building, that's non-time, essentially. So it's not as though they're actually with a student longer, and if they are, they get compensated, say they go to a club with a student or something, they're compensated the same way the town person would. So they're not really with the student for more of the day, they're just in the building. Actually, if we're being honest, they're in the building the same amount of day too, because you're there. But it's not actually that different in practice.
Well, I wonder if they're doing some morning assistance with the students as they arrive. Because if they don't walk into the building at the same time as the students.
Right.
So they're available, greet the students or help them get in off their vehicles into the building and wherever they need to be. And at the end of the day, whereas the way that the unit position is built, it's exactly the same time as student day. So they're not really available to help kids into school and out of school because they're coming in at the same time and leaving at the same time.
It's like a 15-minute, they start at 8:30, we actually start at 8:45.
No, I understand that, but if we're,
Right.
But they come into
for
school
our-
much earlier.
but for those of us down the end of the table who work in the DLC, you are in fact standing at that van at exactly the time of the students, but that means that you were actually there early. So actually, they do that. That does
Okay.
happen.
Right. But if their contractually required workday is 6 hours and 20.
From the moment of the student, so the moment they get off the bus, van, whatever. it
Yeah,
may
their
be.
student day starts, essentially.
Student day
They're
starts.
doing,
Student day for them
Right.
starts
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah,
differently.
yeah. So I'm not sure how it occurred or it came to be that the district had to pull from this agency to have the complement of employees. All we were trying to do is to make them overtime all unit positions. In order to do that, we need to have the flexibility to have unit members work a 7-hour day. Or at least at the end of the contract, as you could see from our prior version of the proposal, it was kind of a phase-in. And I understand some folks are like, I got to get out of here because I have to go to my other job or something like that, but we need to converse about how it's going to all, the pieces are going to all fit together. I don't know if I answered your question, but
It's okay. I think we went back and forth.
I think,
if I talk long enough, you'll say, all right, stop.
so I think though, to Emily's point, I think the spirit of what the district is trying to do is they're trying to phase out the precision HR ESPs over a 3-year span in phases. And then as those get phased out, so in other words, next year, I don't know what the number is, but they contract 75 ESPs, right, for a school year, roughly, approximately. So next year, that number, I'm not going to hold them to it, it's going to be 50. Let's just say 25 a year, that's 75, right? So next year, there'll be 50. In the same breath, they're going to hire some of those 25 that we're not going to contract back.
Yep.
We're going to hire into the unit. And then the year 2, it'd be, we'll cut another chunk of them and we'll hire them in. That's the spirit of what this is intended to
And
be.
I appreciate that. And I think that, I understand the difficulty of saying, like, by this date, we'll be out. Like, I understand that. I think that, though, having something that's just like, we're on the same page as you, we promised to back up, like, that's also not terrible. We could be dealing with, as we said before, we could be dealing with different people in a couple of years and who knows. So some type of, by this time, we won't hire over a certain percentage, or by this time, we'll have out of here. Some kind of scaffolding system may build confidence in that exit strategy.
I don't know that we'd ever be able to do that with all due respect, and I also want to just mention one of the reasons that we asked, at the time it was Delta T, before that was even temp ed, for this additional time was for the transitional needs of the most needy students. And that's who most of these people are with, it's one-to-one age. So there's the difference between students getting off the bus in one big fell swoop and getting right to their class versus some substantial needs and, whether it's physical or what have you. So there's the transition time needed for that group. But I would also say sometimes it isn't Delta T, it may be a nurse. It may be a different category of employee that's needed for a particular student. So I think we could never really say that there's an intention to be 100% by any given day because we just don't know what the needs or the requirements of students are going to be over time. But the spirit of unit members as ESPs, working with students with that job description that exists, is to merge that group into the unit.
So let's see, the working conditions, we counted with the safety language about assaults and reporting and investigating. It looks like you're holding on your response to our counter. Is that correct?
Actually, could I interject here for a second?
Yeah.
Could we actually caucus about the rest of our common proposals?
Yeah, we hadn't intended to do the common ones right now. We were just doing the ESPs.
But I
and
think we have a few
I mean, we
responses. At
could.
least we have one response for you and maybe more. So we just want to make sure we're on the same page before we
That's fair.
Yeah.
get that to you.
So I'll skip ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
So that when we all
great.
walk
Do
us
the
through
unit
each of
specific
them.
ones.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Perfect.
Very good. All right, so, so Unit A specific, prep, Unit A.
And I copied and
Sorry.
pasted, so it should say ESP. The
No, that's
version will
okay.
get
If you
will
want to
say
be called
ESP.
Unit A, we'll call you Unit A. Okay, Department of Ed will be like, wait a minute, what? But
Yeah.
that's okay. So let's see. Okay, we talked about prep time. You guys are holding for now on your prep time proposal on the 181-day. We talked about the long-term, short-term sub.
Yep.
Reduction in force.
Can I just,
Yep.
Roseanne, so just on since you're holding on the 7-hour day, is the deciding point and factor for that an understanding of what that 7-hour day looks like, and then an understanding of what professional development could look like? Is that the piece that we're waiting? No, that's fair. I just want to be clear that, because we want to provide that. That's the
I
case.
didn't realize they were a team, that the 7-hour workday and the 184 had to combine.
Okay.
Okay, so that's definitely something we have to talk about.
Yeah, I think it was in the table.
Right, but I didn't,
Yeah.
she always says, bring back, it's negotiations.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I never realized that they were a team, that they had to, the half-days, the 184, and the 7-hour
Understood.
all went together.
Got it.
The other thing is, I think after talking to aides and ESPs, whatever you want to call us, after talking to them and getting some feedback, I think their biggest fear is working 7 hours is going to mean duties every day.
Okay. So then we owe,
And I don't doubt that.
so then we
I'm
owe
right
you a
with them.
description of what that 7-hour day looks like.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
I'm looking at your proposal number 4, reduction in force. Did you guys distribute that proposal? I don't recall seeing that one.
Okay, I'm going to be honest with you.
Was that one that didn't make the cut, but it got resurrected?
So I'll be honest with you. We went back and forth on this.
Okay.
So
You trying to
we
sneak that in?
had it in a doc that I believed we had printed and given to you. But I think it either got jumbled up in the step up, like when you made a proposal about the step up, and then we all just got finagled together, or perhaps it wasn't there, admittedly. So if you are unable to find it,
Yeah, I don't.
I am willing to admit I perhaps didn't send it,
So I am not
much
losing
to
it.
Joanne's chagrin.
You are very
I apologize.
reassuring, because I thought I was losing my mind.
No, so did I, actually, for the opposite
You
reason.
thought I was losing my mind? Yeah.
Okay, so then
We had one meeting,
we went back and forth.
we had some verbal exchanges, one meeting with nothing in
There was a
writing.
tuition one, yeah. Okay,
could have been
yeah.
part of it.
Yep.
So, all right, so where are you with this one? Are you?
So then we're in, so we can just go to the longevity.
Okay, got you. All right, we, as you know, we have our longevity clarification language, which you guys had mentioned you're probably amenable as long as we clarify.
Yep.
But, and you're holding on your percent.
The percentages,
Yeah.
because we both had an initial, but we never actually went back and forth on them.
Yes. So in conjunction with your holding on the longevity, I need for a moment to skip to the salary. Are you holding on your salary as well?
As of right now, yeah, we are.
Okay. All right. See, okay. We made a salary counter. And at this point, we had kind of expected that you might have a response to our salary counter.
I think that one of the rationales in not going for like dollar amounts was that we have not yet hashed out the 7 hours and the prep time and the PD, and those would all, because your salary scale insists on being hourly, like that is a factor in that. So we didn't want to go messing with math that we hadn't figured out time. Although we could look into it if that's something you would.
Well, I'm curious, because our salary scale is stated in terms of hourly rates because ESPs are hourly employees, they're not salaried. I mean, there is a salary you can calculate based on.
Right.
But unlike teachers who, they're salaried, and that's your salary.
Right.
But for ESPs, we have to state it in terms of an hourly rate, so I'm not sure I'm following
We
you.
just hadn't gone through it yet because we hadn't hashed out anything about the 7 hours and the PD and that kind of stuff.
So could I suggest perhaps that you might discuss with us the hourly rates without having those answers about how long a workday is? Because the folks are still going to get paid for the time they're at work, whether they're working 6 hours, 20, or 7. They're still going to be paid in accordance with the hours worked, right? So, did you have something? I thought you had, yeah. I don't know, that's a request. So, in any event,
On us hashing that out, can I ask a question to Dave? Hi, Dave. Did you figure out salary-wise or hourly, because I did, and your math is probably way better than mine, how much we should be getting paid just working the extra hours that you're asking us to work? So an extra 40 minutes a day, plus 3 more PDs, plus 4 half-days. Did you figure out just what we should be getting paid before a raise?
With the.
You understand what I'm saying? Like,
current-
if we did all that extra work that you're asking of us, before you even give us a raise, like, how much would that cost or how much would that cost the district, or how much extra would we be getting? Because that's figured into your numbers, and I'm curious, just our working time, how much that's worth. before the, do you understand what I'm asking you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, because I figured it out and it, like I said, I did it very quickly, rough numbers, and I was almost at $4,000 that we're working extra. So I was just curious, and that was on step 7, highest salary. So I was just curious if you would run the numbers and had a figure before we started talking about what we, what we're willing to.
I think maybe
Well, I mean, the difference between the 6-hour and
The 6 hour and 20 minutes to the 7 hours, plus the extra PD days, plus the extra half days.
I mean, wouldn't that just be the difference between the two tables? Because the 6-hour and 20-minute
Well,
table
that's what I'm saying,
is,
is that salary scale that you gave us, that proposal, is that the first one just based on the extra time we're putting in?
yeah,
Yeah,
the hourly rate
it's the same.
is the same.
So can I just jump in here
The
because,
7-hour table is
If you work more.
more hours.
yeah,
Right, yes.
Joanne, can I?
Yep.
New card. The current collective bargaining agreement has their pay in an annualized sum. Yes. So I don't know if people actually understand or know what their current hourly rate might be, I think is what we're confused about, right? All of the projections that I've done on this is based on the hourly, based on the annualized, because I don't have those hourly numbers necessarily, because some people might be 6 hours and 20 minutes, but some people might also be 4 and, or anything like that. So that's one thing.
Yes.
But I also understand where the confusion can lie is that, let's say I know no one's making $10 an hour, but let's just say someone's making $10 an hour right now. They're working 6 hours and 20 minutes for 181 days. It will look bigger when we're working more hours and more days, but we're just paying people to work. It's not a raise, right?
Right.
So I think that's what we're kind of looking at as to.
To murky this a bit more too, section 2 of Article 5, it does say aides will be paid on an annual salary as set forth.
Right.
So I guess we're confused on our end because I'm not going to lie, I've seen the hourly rate for other local unions and such, but ours has always been based on a salary, so I think,
Or a
there's a
yearly
lot going on
amount.
right now, so I just wanted to.
So if you, maybe what might help is if you go to the proposal, our counter that we sent you on February 15th, the very last page is the table, salary table. If you look at the current, which is FY '23 to '24, at the very top of that page, it states the salaries in terms of hourly rates and annual. So if you want to do sort of apples to apples, so to speak.
10%.
Well, it doesn't, because this, that table for FY '23-4 is a 181-day table, 6 hours, the day that you're currently working, 6 hours, 20 minutes. So we still have to, so if you compare the hourly rate, let's just compare the hourly rate for now. So FY '23-24, someone at step 7 with the degree is making $26.18 an hour. Under the committee's proposal, they would be making in year 1, $29 an hour, right? In year 2, I think I'm doing this right, they'd be making,
Roseanne, that's, just to be clear, that's apples to apples.
yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
30 an hour, and then in year 3, you'd have to jump to the 7-hour table, but it's still based off of the prior year of 30. It would be now $31 an hour. And then for RBTs, anybody assigned as an RBT would be making, at the end of contract, $33 an hour.
So Joanne, to answer your question.
Yep,
The step 7 ESP today
yep,
is right now currently at a salary of $30,008,
Right.
which is $26.18 based on the number of hours that you currently work.
right.
If you were to stay apples to apples, that $30,000 a year salary under the school committee's proposal goes up to $33,410, so roughly $3,400.
It's an extra
approximately.
day of work, though, we have to count for. It's an 182 day instead of 181, so there's an extra day in there.
Yeah.
So it would go up.
Is that
Yep. Okay.
before
Before
the
going
hour,
to this-
before the raise gets
Right,
added?
right,
Yeah.
right.
So I guess that's kind of what I'm saying too, is right, according to your tables, I know there's a day here and there, but there's I need a bigger screen here. There's about a $3,000 difference in the yearly amount
Yep.
by adding on hours and adding on days. But the hourly amount is staying the same.
No.
No.
Well, from this year to next year?
No. In your in the two different scenarios, whether we do 7 hours and 184 or 620 and 181.
Same hourly
But
rate.
The
Based on
hourly
the
rate
same
that you're
hourly rate.
proposing is the same. So with the additional amount, we're just paying people for working.
You're working more, so you're getting paid more, but your hourly rate is the same. But whether you work the
Yes.
shorter or the longer.
But the hourly rate was increased by $2 plus.
Oh, yeah, no,
Right.
I'm not disputing that at all. I just
Okay, so.
want to make sure that we're looking at it in the same way.
So now I have a question, because you keep saying we're hourly employees. However, if I take my pay for this school year and I divide it by 181, I'm getting my hourly rate. If we're hourly employees, I shouldn't be getting that rate because I don't work the same number of hours every day. Right? Some days I only work 3.5 hours because they're half days. So it seems like we're getting paid salary, we're getting the same amount every hour. Our hourly rate is based on 181 days, our salary divided by 181. It's not based on what we're actually hourly working. So that's, I guess that's where I've always been confused. You say we're hourly employees, but we're not. If we were hourly, our hourly rate would be a little more because we're not working a full 181 days. So, do you understand what I'm saying
So
now?
on early release days? Is that
Yeah,
what
we
you're
get
talking about?
paid,
The aides
because we
get paid for a full day,
Right.
even though they get to leave when the students leave. So they
On
get
every early release
on
day?
an early release day unless the aide chooses to stay.
Right, and I understand for
They
bookkeeping
get
that.
paid for the full day, and it's a benefit. They get to leave even though they're paid for the full 7-hour day.
Okay. And how many days out of the
6-hour,
year?
20-minute, I'm
How many
sorry.
Well,
days
that's
out of the
4.
year?
So you
There's
s-
4 of those days?
Right, so what I'm saying is, it's not really hourly, because if it was hourly, I'd be getting, my hourly rate would show as a higher rate.
Well, officially, you're not an exempt employee, though. That's the difference.
I
There's a salary
understand that, so
exempt,
it's,
so
so where do we lie? I guess that's my question.
It's kind of, yeah, but for those 4, it's 4 days a year that you leave when the students leave. So, but for those 4 days, you're an hourly person.
What about the other half-days that we have?
Do you,
We get paid for the full, even half-days that we all have. the
right,
day-
yes. that's-
We're still getting paid for a full day, that's how our
Even though you're
salary's
released early.
figured.
Yep.
Our hourly rate.
Got you. Okay,
So actually, our per diem rate should be higher.
got you. Okay,
So
yeah,
that's why everyone's always confused.
yeah. Well, I think that
So if we count those days as half-days, you work like 175 days?
No, we still get the same salary because that's.
I know.
Right, so then
But
we,
just for the math.
right, but then we'd get more so the days we work, it would all still be the same amount at the end of the year.
Right.
But yeah, and I understand that logistically it works better unless we're putting down our per diem rate for
Right.
something.
So let me take a shot at it. Sure. The way that the committee's calculating the annual salary has not changed. They're taking the formula of 181 times whatever hours you work, or your day,
Right,
and coming out with an annual amount, and then they're kind of going back and figuring out the hourly rate from there.
Right.
Which is what you all have done for a long
Forever.
time. So it's still apples to apples.
well, I
when you-
understand where you're coming from here. She was saying about people being confused.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you why people are always confused, because it doesn't,
It's not at 100%.
doesn't make
yeah.
sense.
Roseanne, if I may, I think Joanne and I, and I'm not sure if anyone else here was at the table when we proposed the salary scale for this contract, but when it was proposed, it has the hourly listed, Dave calculates the hourly times the full day
Right.
already, and that's how it got annualized based on that proposed increase in hourly rate back then.
But it's always been an annual salary.
But it's annualized on the hourly rate, so those
the
were the
formula that's-
proposals that, I mean, I still have the folder this thick, that you would have looked at then. It didn't print in, it's not printed like that, but that's how it was annualized for every, and Roseanne is correct, it was done the exact same way, calculated in
Always.
munis, always.
How they
Always.
come up with the hourly rate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think, like
Which
your
we have to
your point,
have when you
yeah.
need it, when you
To-
have to have an
But in
hourly
order
rate.
to do an apples to apples, like under the committee's proposal, if your workday stayed 181 days, what would that annual column
Yes.
look like? So we have to just figure that out.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah, but well, all right, okay. So my advice, which you don't have to take, is just take the top piece of that table and compare it to the far right-hand corner of the FY '24-25, and you'll get a reasonable approximation of what the committee's proposal would, how people would fare under the committee's proposal in the first year, and then the second year, and then the third year. Okay? Okay, so where were we? Okay, so, all right, so with that in mind, I think we just asked you to determine whether you can give us a response to our salary counter with that information. If not, just let us know. Let's see, so tuition reimbursement, let me go back to see where we were with that. I'm trying to figure out, the only thing that you're countering on this tuition is 3 courses at $750 per year instead of one $1,500.
Right.
Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right.
Still the 10,000 though total.
The
yeah.
10,000
Right, we're fine
cap.
with that amount.
Okay, very good, thank you.
For being honest, I don't know how you
Personal
calculate
leave, we understand the things that you agree with and don't agree with on the personal leave. And then, what else? Okay. Salary, we talked about. Stipends, okay. So, do you have any response to our stipend counter?
We did have a question. I mean, I kind of assumed this, but I'm just for the sake of the question. So you really countered by putting the RBT in the scale, right? And then, so just to go through the list, so does that mean the CPR, AED, first aid, stop the bleed, pro-para, DLC staff additional, ABA, the de-escalation training, all of that is, because it wasn't included, that is all rejected?
Well, we have included some of what you asked for.
Yes, no, okay,
That's
so you
what
did a
that's
few
how
of
I
them,
would
right.
put it. And so let me just say that some of these things are part of people's training. So if you're here for the training and you're getting paid to be trained on these things, it didn't seem logical that someone would receive a stipend for receiving the training that they're being paid to attend anyway.
Well, so I think one of the ideas behind it is, one of the concepts of HR precision is that they kind of have types of ESPs, I
Yes.
suppose you could say, who receive these different types of trainings. So if we were to move from HR precision then to what we would like, which is the unit members, yes, people would have to be trained. However, you might have an interest in working with a certain demographic of student, or the district might have an interest in having you work with a certain type of student. And those different types of rooms or programs come with different responsibilities, sometimes risks, and require that training. And if you're volunteering to be put in that position, or for something like the CPR, the first aid, stop the bleed, all those things, if you're essentially volunteering to, I'm going to better myself, it's no real different than our having lanes for having more classes, right? This is the way that ESPs can gain in their knowledge and their understanding and their practices. They can get these certifications, they can work with these types of students, and that therefore makes them more marketable and therefore makes them a better value essentially for the district. The district doesn't have to offer, I know that they do CPR for certain people, but right now they, I think this is a Heather question, but they don't do didn't you get a training tomorrow? Didn't you get a certification that expired because of the training? Yeah, okay. So the district does not always do the RBT, the ABA, those types of things. So if an ESP wanted to take that training either on their own or via the district, they're just making themselves more essentially valuable to the district.
Okay.
And then we were a little confused about the PM bus duty thing because that is happening. Same thing with van monitor, which we didn't see accounted for, but that is currently happening.
Okay, so van monitor, and what was the other thing, I'm sorry?
In the PM bus duty, which I guess is kind of, I know that the teachers, it was also on there, so I don't know if that's just an oversight because it was also on the teachers.
PM bus duty, so,
So that's like someone riding the van or the bus with their student, which is something
After-
that does currently happen.
it does,
Right.
okay. So outside of their contractual workday, they're riding?
Yes,
obviously
they
would have
ride
to
the
be.
bus or the van with their student.
And they're not receiving additional pay
Well,
for
they
that, or
get
are
this
they?
$30 for the, is it per trip, right?
It's $30, it's $15 each way.
Okay, $15 each way.
So you're seeking to just incorporate that into the contract?
Right, essentially.
So PM bus duty, is that a different thing then for 3,600?
Well, that would be if you were staying after to do bus duty, but it was later than the contractual day, the same way that the teachers proposed essentially the exact same thing. This would just be for, anyone could apply to it essentially.
So in the teacher contract, they can be assigned a bus duty though, right? Within their contractual day that goes beyond the student.
Right, but this is beyond the contractual day.
Understood, for ESPs it is, right.
Not if
And
it's
it,
7 hours.
right.
If it were the 7-hour day.
They're in the
obviously,
same
it would be.
idea.
Right.
Same vein.
So I guess we're approaching it in a different way. We're saying, instead of making it a stipend, everybody's going to be asked to work more, i.e. get paid more. So, you know what I mean?
Right, but right now, the reason this is in here is because right now at certain buildings for, things that are outside the district's control, people are already staying past their contractual time. Not the ESP day, the teacher day. So if they were to move to the teacher day, they could then be in the same position as the teachers, which is that they have to stay later at these certain buildings and it might change in the future, right? Because the bus schedule is what it is. So that's just a regular, if we know that this building, the buses are always 10 minutes late. There's always 10 minutes late in the afternoon. So we're going to hire some people who just always volunteer to not volunteer, but who want to stay late. Like this could be them. They could get paid for that.
So do I understand that currently there are ESPs who are staying after without getting paid to see the students off? Is that happening?
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
That I'm
I
not
would
sure.
encourage them not to, but I bet there are. Yeah.
They do.
Okay, all right.
It was a problem, Emily started to say, with the teachers particularly.
Right.
Where we were having to stay past our contractual time
Because the bus might have been late.
because of, yes, bus issues. And now that we put that in ours in hopes of having an available Appendix B stipend for elementary,
Yeah.
we're just saying since their day has the potential to be 7 hours like us, we'd like them to have access to it as well.
Okay, understood. All right, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
All right, and the other things, like I said, we've agreed to some of these
Right.
stipends proposed, but some of them we didn't agree to. And
Right.
That's how negotiation, as you know, goes.
I have a question on on the van bus monitor, $30, is that now, are you proposing $30
Well, because it
per
is.
ride? Or,
It is technically, because we did it per day, and the way they're getting
Okay.
paid right now is like per trip,
yeah,
right? So assumably, if you're going to go with the student to school, you've left your car at the bus place, so you have to take it back. So you would just be doing it for the day. So we thought in the interest of making it easier, it comes out to $30 a day because it's 15 per trip.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, we didn't know if it was 30 per trip or per day, but that looks like per day.
Yeah, it says per day, yeah.
Okay, all right, so, yeah. So the reasoning on the RBT is this. If you're hired as an RBT, then you obviously need the credential. So that's why there's a differentiation on the salary schedule. I'm not sure an ABA assistant is currently something that folks are doing.
We would be kind of unaware if a HR precision aide was hired under any of these specific
Right.
situations. I don't know if the district has a way of auditing that I'm not sure.
We don't,
They are, some are.
we don't have any that
No
we're
ABAs?
No.
paying a premium for, anyway.
And, yeah. And I think the Braille, we already have, yeah, that's.
Yeah, the
And the
Braille one we
master's
have.
degree, we still kept the differential on the master's stipend, so we're sticking with that.
To clarify for that, we did also propose cutting the stipulations on the master stipend. Is that,
We, I have a recollection, the last cycle of negotiations, we talked a lot about that. And we insisted on having some return on the investment, meaning a master's in education or in special education, not a master's in like anything. So we felt it was important then, we feel it's important now. It's what's going to produce the results in terms of student outcomes. And we think that it's worth spending the extra stipend money that's in there now, because it does, if the area of concentration is in an educational area, of course, it's worth the money. Education is never a waste, obviously, of money, even if you never put that whatever degree to some remunerative endeavor. But the district, as you know, the finances are not infinite, so they have to make decisions on where to allocate. So I think we just feel strongly, as we did last time around, that that's an important stipulation. All right, so it sounds like at the moment you're maintaining what you have here for your stipends in response to our counter?
we did want to hear your rationale behind it, but we do feel like the stipends that we listed are things that would directly benefit students, especially if they are, especially if we're going to, move away from contracting. It is important to have a, group of staff with diverse training and you want to make sure that everybody is fit in. And so we do hold that a lot of these, especially the safety ones, are critically important to the demographic of students that they're working with. And it's also just kind of better for the building in a lot of ways. The more people who have certain trainings, in a lot of ways, the better off the building is.
Understood.
Can I just add to it, just based on what you just said, Roseanne? You said, on the master's degree, you're holding that you want like a return on your investment, and you got to draw the line somewhere. And I think with the proposals, CPR, AED, first aid, the safety of the student is most certainly a return on the investment.
Of course, absolutely.
So I'm not saying you're not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying that our proposal matches what you're saying.
Yeah, we will talk about this, but a lot of this, obviously, if everybody were trained in CPR and AED, that would be wonderful. If everyone were trained in first aid, stop the bleed. Don't you have a program?
We've supplied that.
Yeah,
Stop
the district
bleed,
supplies
First aid.
the first aid and the stop the bleed anyway,
For
as part of everybody's
including
training,
every employee.
every employee.
I have to go get certified every year for Alphabest for CPR. I've never been certified through the school.
First
Where
aid.
I've got a certificate for CPR.
First aid and stop the bleed, does the district provide training for those?
And Alice, and
Yeah.
certain safety procedures for every employee.
Right.
Well, I could be wrong, but I think the last time we were given Stop the Bleed training had to be before Lori. So more than 2 years ago, well before Lori. So and I remember, because we were in the auditorium here, yeah. And the police department came, but that was years ago. So there's certainly people in this district right now who see the little boxes in the hallway, but have never had the actual training. And also, there's a difference between the training where they come in and there's 10 of you and you go through all the different options and things in the pack versus what we did that day, which was just a general presentation by the police department. So I don't really think that is offered right now.
2019.
2019, thank you.
Yeah,
It's all new staff.
Right,
Every
okay.
year.
new staff gets the training?
All new staff every
All new
year.
staff get it
All
every year?
new staff.
Okay, all right.
And if they are hired mid-year, we sometimes roll them into that first day
Okay.
with all the new teachers.
Okay. I know that it's beneficial to have the CPR, and You also know that there's a safety net in each building. The nurse obviously is a resource that the district has available to help with medical issues too. So I don't want anyone to get the impression that these aren't being addressed in each building. Of course they are. The nurse has all these trainings.
As well as coaches, as well as
Yeah.
OTPT.
Yeah.
Trying to think some of the medical licensed people.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. Housekeeping, we think we talked about that. Personal days, yep, we did talk about personal days. 7 hours we talked about. And this,
So Roseanne, can I just go back to the stipends for a second? Because I'm getting a little bit confused about this too. I think that the stipends that we proposed were certifications, not just training. My 14-year-old went to a babysitting class and got first aid training, but she's not certified, right? So I think that there's a difference between those two things in terms of certification versus just a generic training to make sure you can put a Band-Aid on people.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's not just putting a Band-Aid on the district's training.
No, a Band-Aid on people, she said.
Yes, I know that. I'm thinking that the district doesn't train new employees to apply Band-Aids, is what I'm saying. I think it's more involved than that.
I was being hyperbolic, but I understand where you're.
I just know I have to
actually
go.
have to disagree with that.
I know.
Because I recall that 2019 training, and there was a bunch of us in the auditorium, and they just threw a ton of information at us, a ton, on Stop the Bleed.
Okay.
I just completed a course at the police station for CPR, AED, Stop the Bleed, and first aid. And I was there for 4.5 hours. If I recall correctly, that Stop the Bleed training we had was maybe 45 minutes with a bunch of people in the auditorium.
Plus, we broke out, we had, I think, 22 between nurses and police, break out the groups in groups of 10 or less to
Again,
practice.
I have to disagree with, I don't feel that that training that I received one time was as intensive as the training I received at the police department. You know, because now we're supposed to take care of the kids. And then now, I see a guidance counselor's been shot by an intruder, and I'm supposed to suddenly be able to go over and decide, is this person worth trying to help and save, or they're not, and I just walk on and maybe go to someone else who's like grazed by a bullet, say.
Kelly, just a question, and my background, I'm a nurse, so in emergency care, so I'm trying not to put my work hat on, but was that an AHA certified? You got a card from the American Heart Association for that
I
certification?
got from the police department?
Yeah,
I got a card from the police department.
so that would be a training. Like your certification would come from like the American Heart Association.
Right, but.
I mean, I'm just trying to think through, is this something that the district can revisit? Because it sounds like there's want for it,
I
so,
mean, I don't know. I don't feel like, if I compare what we got in 19 to
Yeah.
what I went through, they don't compare.
yeah. I mean, I'm here thinking, what do we need to put in this contract moving forward? All this back information, super helpful. I care about what are we doing moving forward? So I'm just wanting clarification, because you have
I mean, is that calling
contemporary.
us certified? Is that certified
So
then?
I don't know. I don't know what you took.
That's not certified. what we
I know
had
our
in 19.
CPR training for specific staff is certifications.
So
Bridget, can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
As a coach,
It-
we get certified every 2 years.
Yeah.
You have to get re-upped,
Right.
and it is like an intensive training, usually run by like a health teacher with the dummies and all that, so.
Yeah,
And that's what I was going to say about
But it's
Alpha
something that I have
Best.
to do on like my own time
Yeah.
every 2 years.
And Alpha Best requires every employee because,
have your.
right, because the EEC requires it.
Okay.
I have never been AHA certified through the school.
Yeah.
We've had quick, brief things in the auditorium on the first PD. Helpful, but am I going to jump in somewhere with that training? No. I think it is valuable to have, and I know there are some staff members, but if somebody comes in and is willing to get their AHA card and their certification, to jump in. Isn't that worth something to keep people safe?
And I think to go off your point, Bridget, because like I think your point kind of complemented what we were saying nicely there. Like all that time Kelly spent, 4+ hours, may have not led to certification. That was just a training. These stipends for people who are certified, so they're going through even more of an intensive, longer session
Right.
for each one. That's
And
why
I'm
we're trying
wearing,
to honor that.
I'm also wearing a school committee hat here, because there's a cost associated, you know, do you pay people to take their certifications? You have to pay the American Heart Association when you certify people.
That's what we're asking for. We're not
No, no,
asking for
no.
you to pay for it. We're just asking for you to give us a stipend if we have it.
Right, but I'm thinking through all the different scenarios,
Right.
that's all, and I'm just thinking through it all, that's all.
I just wanted to clarify, it wasn't.
Yeah.
that
No,
that-
but I mean, I'm
You have-
hearing there's
walk in
enough
with the
people
cert.
that want it, so
Right.
that's also in my head.
Okay. Let's see. Which of these we talked about? So I guess I was wondering, well, maybe it's answered in here. We had talked about the short-term substituting, and it looks like I know you had a lot of questions, and you were concerned about a principal being able to assign somebody to perform duties.
Yes. Sorry.
Did you reject or counter that, or are you still thinking about it? I was
mean,
assuming
can
you
say that-
rejected it.
I can say that we're still thinking about it, but if I'm being like totally transparent, we are seriously concerned. I do understand to what Bridget said before. We understand that the half-day sick thing does complicate, could complicate the substituting. However, we are nervous about the sudden moving people during the day, which, you know, is a problem on both ends. I'm sure it's a problem for the administration as well. But then the needs of the kids on the IEPs and the fact that that has to be the thing that comes first.
Oh, yes.
And I know that you understand that, so I think one of the most important things is that they have the right to refuse is very important, that you can be like, no, something else is is more important. So I think we are trying to also come up with something that we think is more in the middle. But it is something that we don't have a counter for right this moment because we're still wrestling with.
Okay, maybe, would you consider something like this? I know that, Mr. Malloy, you've made a good point about how do you know that the half-sick day is going to come to a problem, right? So what about something like, we try it for a year without making anything like a mandatory, you have to do it. Right of refusal, the first year of the contract. Revisit it at the end of the first year and see how we did. And if it went great, fine, we'll keep it voluntary. If it didn't go great, we'll have to tuck in the right to assign, you know, if things got, like, we didn't have coverage and a principal had to, you know, go there and shirk other duties or whatever. So maybe we could do like a trial, see if we collect some data, see how it goes for a year.
We can talk about that. We
Yeah.
can caucus that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so moving along, I think we probably won't have time to caucus and come back with our but this is, I found this conversation, your comments, very helpful for us to go back and talk about, so thank you for giving us that time.
I did think it was helpful to like mesh some of these things together. I did think that made it easier.
Let's see. We also were wondering if you had any response to our proposal about where new hires are going to be placed on the salary schedule. If, let's say that the transition of current Delta ESPs into the unit would lead to the district actually offering positions to some of those displaced folks. We're not saying it's going to happen, but it might. Would they then have to start off at step one, even though they had been working in the schools for a number of years, just not as a direct employee? You know what I mean?
We thought that was fair. However, I think when it was first presented, our thoughts were, we need some language to tighten it up, though. Because I told you before, years ago, we filed a grievance on this because the superintendent was putting people wherever he felt they should be.
Okay.
And that wasn't fair. Some people would come into the 4, some people would come into the 2. So I'm all for any experience putting them, but we'd like you to come up with something, some guidelines as to how they're going to be placed.
Okay.
You know, if they worked as an aide in a school for more than 90 days, it doesn't have to be as a town aide, it could be, you know, a Tewksbury aide, it could be in another district, or as a Delta, but we need some kind of language just to tighten it up.
But Joanne, as a hiring manager, that's determining whether that particular individual is qualified to have the job, why should that individual then not be allowed to set the salary equivalent to their experience and/or?
Agreed, but before it was done so willy-nilly that we're trying to protect ourselves.
So you're saying the hiring manager was making willy-nilly?
Yes, and we actually got to a grievance stage on it, and I don't want to see that happen again.
Sure.
And, you know, she may be great at it, but 10 years down the road, you know,
So you wanted to, some
I
rhyme
want
or
to
reason
tighten
in
it up a
there?
little, some kind of language that just tightens it up.
Okay.
I think it's relevant experience,
Not that they
relevant, yeah.
appear to interview great, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
or teaching, or
Right,
maybe
something,
nursing.
yeah.
Okay.
Not that they worked at a department store for 6 years and they were
right.
great with people.
Right.
You know, so that's all.
Okay, all right. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to ask you about. Anything else, team? Nope, okay, great.
So before this break, could I just, when we come back, we'll be starting the teachers. Like I said, we have one thing that I think I'm going to print out, something that I think might be close to a TA. Exciting. Okay, we got to talk though very quickly about that before I do that.
We have a TA on Good Friday, remember that time? We actually TA'd
Oh,
something?
we're good with Dave's
We
paycheck.
got to that.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Good Friday.
Momentum.
Good Friday. Okay, anyways.
Celebrate the win.
I do ask when we get back, before we get to some of our responses, if we could go through that elementary talk we were hoping to just speak to you about, just because that kind of, we tabled out from the last one, and then we'll go into a document we made for you all. Does that sound great?
Perfect.
Could we say 6, could we say like,
Well, you're gonna,
6:20 or?
do you want to take like some time? Because we
6:20.
just went through a whole bunch of stuff, so do you longer, like
6:20?
And just start.
20, is that okay?
Come back to open the teacher session at 6:20, you mean?
Or 6:30?
Okay, yeah, I don't know.
6:20.
6:20?
6:20.
You want to come back at 6:20?
Whatever you guys want, is that?
Yeah, because some people can use it
That's
to
good. No, okay.
caucus and then have a break.
Let's do the same.
Okay, very good.
Motion to adjourn or recess?
Adjourn at 6:03 to return at 6:20.
6:29 PM.
All right. So now we're going to the teacher one. We do have a few responses, some TAs, and I think a potential TA that is not in the packet, but we're going to give to you individually if you've not done so already. But before we get to any of that, we did want to talk about something we left off on last time, and that was the elementary prep time.
Yeah.
And I'm now going to turn it over to Emily to start this off. Obviously, this can be a dynamic conversation with questions during it. Feel free. But this is something that's very important to our elementary educators. So go ahead.
So I'm going to kind of run down a few things, and then I know there's a few other people who want to add on or go a little more into depth or just continue to speak on the matter. So the first thing I just wanted to comment on, because I feel like we started to get in a little bit of a confusing state last time, was that there are other districts, a number of other districts, who do have half-days every week. Now, what I started to say last time was that we're not asking for the entire district to have half-days every week. And I do understand the math that you did, that you said it pretty much equates to that. But with that being said, there are districts that do half-days every week, and my point of saying that, even though they may use those half-days a little differently, right? There might be some PD thrown in there and whatnot. But my point of saying that is that having a half-day every week is not cutting into the 900 state mandated hours of time on learning. So I'm just trying to make that clear, that even though we're not exactly asking for one every week, and what we're asking for with elementary prep time does not exactly align with other districts who have it every week, we still know it's doable in terms of state mandated time on learning. Does that make sense?
Yes.
No, well.
Well, it makes sense what
It makes
you're
sense.
saying.
It makes sense what you're saying, but do you have anything that supports how you're calculating hours on learning, time on learning?
Because if students are being released early, that's
Because it's-
reducing their time on
Correct.
learning.
I'm saying it will reduce the time on learning, but it will not go below what the state
900.
requires for time on learning. Okay.
So I assume that the districts that are doing that are making accommodations on days outside of the half-day, where maybe they have less prep time on those
I don't
4
know
days
if
a week.
I'm understanding exactly what you're asking.
So in a district that might have a half-day every single week,
Yep.
would they maybe on their 4 days, full days a week, have less prep time because they're putting it into, or less time not instructional? No?
Not in what I've found thus far.
Do you want to share your findings a little bit, just the districts and such, or?
Yeah, I guess the question could be, how many hours are the kids spending in school each day, in learning each day?
5 hours and 35 minutes.
In those other schools?
No, that was my question. So I would assume, maybe I'm wrong, Brandy, I don't know. If those districts that are able to accommodate a half-day per week, are they having more instructional time on the other 4 days to accommodate that half-day? Not saying that you're even asking for that, but I'm just curious.
I don't know that data. What I figured out was the two half-days a month we were asking for.
Yep.
We're 80 so hours over Massachusetts's allotted 900 hours. Like elementary teachers teach for 985 hours a year. This is just my rough math, okay?
Sure.
So I figured out, how many hours the kids were in front of us, didn't include lunch and recess, and how many half-days and all that. And this is just K to 4, remember? Like, we're not asking, it's a half-day for K to 4 twice a month. So basically, we're still, if we did 2 true half-days for prep time, not only would we catch up to the high school's prep time, but we would still be 29 hours over the 900 hours every year with the 2 half-days.
Superintendent Regan, have you looked at time on learning at the elementary level specifically,
Yeah.
in terms of minutes or hours or in a year?
And time on learning only includes direct instruction time. So you have to back out things like homeroom, lunch and recess, passing, even if it's not built in.
Yeah, but we don't have passing or
Well,
homeroom.
let me just rephrase that. Even if it's not built into a bell schedule, you have to weave in. DESI understands that students don't automatically go from one room, bink, and appear in another. You have to weave in. If the contractual day has two preps or common in a prep, the DESI understands students are passing to another room and coming back. So you have to back out, as I said, homeroom, transition time, lunch recess, any time that's not direct instruction. And when you back that out, you have a real look at time on learning in the day.
I'm going to answer Bridget's direct question then, because we're kind of going around it a little bit. I've already Googled the first 5 districts that Emily has cited, and I'll go through them. Quincy, Marshfield, Arlington, Ipswich, Sandwich.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Quincy?
Marshfield,
Yep.
Arlington, Ipswich, Sandwich, Newton. And I'm going to stop there because there's others, but I haven't
Yeah.
Googled those yet.
Yeah.
Those school times I'm looking at are pretty much on par with our school times, with not having either these every other half days or these half days
Right.
every week.
All right.
So that, just to answer your question,
Gotcha.
like, I think there's some homeroom time in there, so some might be 7:15 to like 1:50, but the ones that are more like a model, I'm thinking high school right now because I'm a high school teacher. It's like 7:30 to 1:50, 7:30 to 1:47, 1:53. They all seem to be
Yeah.
right on par. So I just want to
So
answer
if
the
we
question.
talk about the K-4, what the K-4 day looks like for a student.
I'm sorry, before you go any further, I just want to ask a clarifying question that might, I'm confused because unless I understood wrong, the last time we talked about transition time, we were told it wouldn't be allowed to be built into our schedule because it is time on learning. And then unless I heard you wrong, you just said we have to calculate that out of time on learning.
We do have to calculate out. What it's not built into is a bell schedule like the high school. Everybody doesn't move it exactly. At the high school, the kids get up independently. They all have the 4 minutes. You build it into the bell schedule.
Okay, because last time I thought that you said the reason we weren't building it into a bell schedule is because it's all time on learning anyways.
Not all. No, it's certainly not all time on learning.
no,
I mean,
just-
lunch, recess, all of
No,
it.
just to
Let's focus on-
just to clarify what you're saying, Emily, what that was intended for was to show how many prep minutes or common planning minutes are in a teacher workday. So in other words, when you're lining kids up to go to lunch, you can't be doing your prep time during that time.
Correct.
So, but from a student perspective, that is instructional time to that student. But
They're with the teacher.
with the teacher, when you're calculating minutes to DESI, we can't include that based on what I'm understanding.
Right.
But we're not.
But it's still, it's not time that a teacher can have prep.
But it can be included to limit our prep, but it can't be included.
Correct.
To maximize.
Do you know what the,
Like, that's a pretty one-way street.
No. Your comment, Pete, it's there. We know it's there.
But you told us that it
doesn't
that it
count
didn't
towards
count.
instruction. You said it, but it's happening. So we know that transition and walking and whatever it is at the end of the day, different at different grade levels, and maybe, 5 minutes at the end of the day, packing up at the Ryan versus 10 at another school. But some time is dedicated to that is non-instructional.
I think problematic to that is when Superintendent Regan said, well, you have to carve out time for transitioning. Well, we don't know how much time she is carving out for transitioning. That's not communicated to us. It's not in a bell schedule. I'll just finish. It's not in a bell schedule. It's not in an email. And so as we're trying to present our proposals for what we believe is time on learning, we're at a significant disadvantage. We can't even be accurate because it's up to the superintendent, whoever it might be. It's Regan now, it could be somebody else. Sure.
Well, what if we do this?
In time.
If we could do this. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to say, like, and I'm sure a lot of elementary teachers feel this, we have 0 time between each block, zero. So when my prep starts at 2, I'm walking my children so I'm losing prep time. I'm losing 5 minutes of prep to get them to where they need to be, to wait for the other class to leave. So that's where we're feeling like, wait a minute, like,
I think
so now
everybody
we're losing it and we're already at a
understands.
huge deficit.
Yeah, I think they definitely understood that.
Yeah.
That area between the one class on paper ending exactly at 2 o'clock and the other one starting exactly at 2 o'clock has to be worked out between the sending teacher and the receiving teacher. And you're right, it does, the minutes starting at 2, your clock is ticking on your prep time minutes. We acknowledge, everybody acknowledges that's in fact what's happening. So could we do this? So the student day is 6 hours, 20 minutes, is that right? So 380 minutes. So they spend, in the K through 4, they spend a combined 45 minutes at lunch and recess, right? So that means now we're down to 45 minutes subtracted from 620. What is that? I can't do minutes on the,
I think it would probably behoove everybody if we put it all into something and share that.
That's 5 hours and 35 minutes, right, Brandy?
5:35 after you back out 45 minutes of lunch
Oh, I'm
recess.
sorry, what? I said 5 hours and 35 minutes, not including lunch and recess.
Okay, so even assuming that's the only non-instructional time that's contractually set out, let's not talk about DESI for a minute. Contractually, you've got a 5:35. So with that number, how many half-days are already in the schedule?
8 next
Or
year.
early release?
8 next year.
8 next year?
9.
8 or 9?
Oh, okay, 9.
There were 10 this year, but there's 9 typically.
Okay, and that includes all those days that are listed 1 through 5 somewhere in the contract. So those days, how many hours or minutes in the early release days are students released early?
It's a 190-minute day, 3 hours, 10 minutes. And then it's a shortened instructional block, so the other things exist, the prep time.
So how many, then, so from this 5:35 per day, I'm just trying to figure out what the total is accounting for the early release. Your math is, it comes out to how many?
85 hours a year?
985?
Ish.
Ish.
Well.
Okay,
yeah,
no,
give or
I'm just
take.
trying to follow you, okay.
It is very different from grade to grade, right?
Yeah.
It will be from kindergarten to
Okay.
4.
All right. Uh-huh. All right.
Yeah, Roseanne, if you back out, if you just take the 6-hour and 20-minute day, back out the 45 minutes for lunch and recess, and you multiply that by 171 days,
Yep.
and then add 9, equivalent of 9 half-days, it is 983 hours.
Right.
Without.
You were off by
without
2
the-
With just lunch and, with just
I was
lunch
off
and
by a
recess.
half day.
Right, just lunch recess,
Sorry,
got
I
it.
read the
Okay,
calendar
all right, okay.
So, to kind of help us all out, I mean, we'd be happy to give you this list if you'd like, and because I know the original question we're going in a bit, not a circle, but we're kind of weaving off a little bit.
Yep.
I'd be happy to get in touch with different local presidents if you'd be happy to get in touch with different superintendents to see how they do that time, because the essential question that was asked here in the middle of the presentation was, how does that practically look?
Yep.
And it's hard for us to all do that together.
I agree.
I'm not great at math, especially on camera, but anyways, but
Good people for that in this room.
But to do that, would you mean, I could send you this list?
Yeah, I think that's great. I would like to also know how are they accountable to DESI with really reporting their hours, because that's the only thing I can do is really be accountable.
So, yeah, we have to take.
I don't know what.
Right. The 983.
districts do that?
Yeah, we have to consider the 983, but we also have to consider what DESI's calculation
enough.
might be.
Can I,
And
just one quick, and I don't know if you know the answer, you might have to look it up. How many minutes does DESI allot for this? You said DESI essentially ignores certain minutes for this transition. Say you report, it's 6 hours, 20 minutes is our day. Okay, they auto subtract 15 minutes or 10 or whatever. Do you know what that is?
They don't auto subtract anything. They require us to be accountable to the minimum with the transition time taken out.
because different transitions, if your lunch
right.
is 2
So
feet away,
Calculates it, but we don't know how.
size of the building.
How much it is? Okay.
I mean, and it's a range, right? From kindergarten, traveling to a specialist, could take 5 minutes each way, 4th grade, 2 or 3 minutes each way.
And if
So
you're
then
only
how
going
do-
to
when-
next
when you
door.
watch-
So then how do you, okay, so then it's
Yeah.
not a DESI question then. So then my question, actually, maybe you can't answer it then, because it would be.
You try to be as conservative
How
as
do,
possible.
right, but, so you must have a number, I get that it's different at the center school versus the Wynn versus the high school is built in, but, so how many minutes do you subtract from the Wynn's day to account for that transition time versus how many minutes does the district subtract from the center school's day to
The
account
Wynn
for?
would be a bad example, because you have to do 990, and right now, if we even our conservative, we're at risk of not meeting the 990. So the WIN is probably not the best example, but the K4, when you look at what's a conservative to and from a specialist, lining up, stopping instruction, lining up. And with the principals, they'll give us probably 3 different answers, depending on the age of the little one and the legs, but 2 to 3 minutes each way, right? For a special, say 3. 3 minutes each way, maybe, for lunch. I watch lunch and recess line up right out my window, so I see how long that takes, and that's a walk around the whole building back in. So here, at the center, not here, it may range a little less than the PK1, but the principals can put together a range of what that looks like. But it's clear that there is passing and lunch. We don't have homeroom. We don't have homeroom.
So maybe for the sake of trying to refocus on the elementary prep, if you could provide us like a bullet of each school and what you do calculate for that transition.
K4 or all?
I think probably everyone would be interested in general.
I mean, the high school you would.
The high school is simple because if we only look at what's in the handbook, 9 half-days, or on the calendar, and 16 minutes of passing, and 25 lunch, the high school's only about an hour or 2 over the 990. So it's really, and the WIN is closer. So those 2 we can share with you, the conservative look at it. K4 and Ryan, again, it's gonna range, but we'll work with the principals.
That would be great, thank you.
Yeah, that might help for the next conversation we have on this. There's another thing that we have to consider. I mean, we get you. The time that you have in combined common planning and prep is different at the elementary. There's another issue we need to wrestle with as public servants, these guys that are elected officials, is parent expectations. Are they going to be equipped to have their kids home more or not in school? And different parents will give you different answers to that, right? Right.
So I'm going to.
Go ahead. You want to say it? Go ahead.
Well, having my own child, I don't put expectations on the school to take care of my child.
Right. It's not a babysitter.
So
I
if
get
they
you.
have
I understand.
10 half-days, I have to accommodate that.
Yes. But you understand, though, that there's a certain soft landing that might be appreciated.
School is there to teach the children.
Not to
That's what I was
babysit.
hired to do, was
Yes.
teach them the curriculum, not necessarily watch them because their parents can't find daycare.
Right, but you are correct, I hear you, but then there's also the reality of, who moved my cheese,
So I would like to say respectfully, this is not the first time the parent aspect has been brought up. I have multiple people in this room whose kids I've taught one or more of. I love the parents. I feel as though, I'll toot my own horn, I feel as though I make a great connection with parents. But with that, respectfully, we are not here to negotiate for parents.
Right, yes.
We are here to negotiate for students and staff.
Absolutely
Okay.
hear you on that, but I just wanted to bring another aspect of the thought process into
And
that.
I would just
Totally get
add on the student aspect, and I appreciate that. And we already have a lot of days in the school year that parents are juggling. And look I certainly am recognizing as teachers, you're juggling it as well with daycare, and which is why we're looking at potentially helping our teachers with young children in our schools. So we recognize that. I also just want to say, and it was said at the last one, we're also not in the business of looking at the minimum time on learning. Minimum is there by law, but we know that our kiddos can use, and especially some kiddos, more than the minimum. So I think we're on the same page about looking at the hours and seeing what's available.
I would
There's
just,
probably 2 other facets to the whole conversation.
I would just say no one on our end once has mentioned that we're looking for the minimum amount of time on learning.
I was going to go right, Kristen, yes. I was going to go right off that. Listen, we're not looking for minimum here, but I will say, I think right now there is room for compromise here. And I will tell you, all I hear from elementary teachers is if they had just this much more time, that much more time, the time on learning would be even that much more qualitatively great. They'd have time to, do you want to speak on that? All right, do you want to? I get it. Oh.
So I've been teaching here in Tewksbury for 25 years. all of my years have been here. And as one of my more astute math students pointed out, that's a quarter of a century. Thank you very much.
Right?
Historically, elementary teachers have had significantly less common planning time as well as less individual planning time than our colleagues in all the other grade levels here in Tewksbury. Yet, elementary teachers have more instructional time in front of students for which to plan. We also plan and deliver lessons for all subject areas, which means daily we have to plan and prepare and differentiate for more lessons than our colleagues in grades 5 through 12 who specialize in their subject areas so they can reuse lessons throughout a day. Quite literally, this means we are being expected to do more with less. Over the last few years, the inequity has been acknowledged by the district, and I do appreciate that. I was lucky enough to be negotiating during COVID, and it was pointed out at the table at that time, the different hours or minutes per day for each grade level. And to say, seeing it in black and white or whatever the computer screen was a punch in the gut, it was rough. The elementary minutes are so much lower than everybody else. I also appreciate at the table on the district side, it was noted that while the mouse was being circled around the elementary part, there's work to do here. And yeah, there's work to do here. But unfortunately, actions speak louder than words. And right now, we haven't seen any initiative from the district side to address that inequity that we're seeing in the prep time. Elementary teachers, we teach little kids, but that does not mean that they're less than or that they should be undervalued. Elementary students are not less worthy of access to lessons that have been carefully and thoughtfully planned than their counterparts in grades 5 through 12. Elementary students with learning disabilities are deserving of lessons that have been planned and developed with the collaboration of their MSNTs to best meet their individual needs, just like their counterparts in grades 5 through 12. Elementary students with reading difficulties are deserving of lessons that have been planned and designed with collaboration with reading specialists. English language learners are deserving of an education that has been designed with the input and collaboration from the L teachers, just like their counterparts in grades 5 through 12. Elementary students with difficulties with behavior regulation, or unfortunately trauma backgrounds and histories. They deserve teachers who have been able to collaborate with their adjustment counselors, behavior specialists, ESPs who work with them in order to best support their needs in the classroom, just like their counterparts in grades 5 through 12. Elementary students are worthy of lessons for which their teachers have been able to thoughtfully plan, differentiate, collaborate, and prepare to meet their varied academic and behavioral needs, like their counterparts in grades 5 through 12. Currently, these needs are being met, but on the fly. For example, we take a few minutes during the actual lesson in front of the students to have a quick exchange with whoever's in the room, or possibly in the hallway while we're walking to specialists if we happen to see someone. If we're lucky enough to be at the same lunch period with the MSNT or whoever we might be working with, and we don't have duty at the same time, we're there at the same time, we can have a quick meeting here or there. And we also do emails and, Google Docs. But we've been getting by. But our elementary students deserve better. They deserve more than their teachers just getting by. They deserve the same treatment as their counterparts in grades 5 through 12. So in closing, I just have one example to share. Years ago, I worked for a principal, like I said, I've been here a while, who developed and instituted something she called GEMS. These were twice monthly grade level meetings that included ancillary service providers where we were granted the autonomy, the professional discretion, and the trust to work on things that we deemed important to improving the instruction for all our students. We analyzed data, we developed lessons to meet common areas of weakness amongst our students, we developed modifications for students with different needs, we shared best practices, and addressed other areas of importance that we identified, including our gifted and high-achieving students. These meetings took place while the students were engaged in SEL lessons delivered by specialists over the period of about a year. The year in which these meetings were implemented, our school became a level 1 school. I believe these meetings were a driving force in that success for our school. Please understand, we're not asking for more than our fair share. We are simply asking that elementary students and teachers be valued and treated equally as our counterparts here in Tewksbury Public Schools. I do hope you'll reconsider the need, the value, and importance for elementary planning time in our district and work with us to creatively address this inequity. I think a quarter of a century is long enough to wait, and our elementary students here in Tewksbury are deserving and worthy of this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks. One thing I'd like to say, I think when you look at this pie chart that went out last time, the numbers don't lie. So, I mean, it's clear. I don't think there's any question about that. I'd like to see us all be on the same page with the numbers in terms of time on learning. And so we need to come together on that, maybe offline, and come back to a meeting at least with that. But I also would like to hear where you were going with any proposal that you might have had.
Not necessarily an additional proposal, just a couple other thoughts in terms of, aside from what Michelle just said, points that are beneficial. And you just mentioned the pie chart. And Superintendent Regan had said that she recognized last time that where we were in a deficit was CPT. But again, I just want to respectfully disagree there because the high school had none listed on their pie chart. And that's not exactly what we're asking for. Because we do have our PLC time and our CPT time now with our team. It is the prep. It is the prep. There's no two ways around that. And then just another creative thought here, thinking about two different proposals, is that at the K-4 level, it wouldn't necessarily help everybody, but it would then give the aides prep time with us on those half days where you wouldn't then have to build it in to the daily schedule every day. They would have it with us on those days. And then honestly, unless anyone else has anything to say, the bottom line here is just that, as Superintendent Regan said last time, K-4 has the most direct instruction time with, everybody has acknowledged, the most subjects to teach, but the least amount of prep time. And definitely quality over quantity here. I can sit here and tell you wholeheartedly that those students would receive better instruction, even if it was a little less time, with our planning time increased because of how dynamic and integrated we could make things.
So this clearly is a priority. I'm not being facetious. We understand your presentation is meant to signal to us, this is a top priority in this cycle. We get it. We understand.
I'd like to piggyback on a point that Emily had made. I'm sorry, that Ms. Regan had made.
Sure.
She had mentioned that, going back, you're not interested in the minimum, right? And we had responded that we're not asking for the minimum. Currently, the district employs the minimum number of minutes for recess and lunch for students. And every single bit of research says that rigorous outdoor activity and play codifies learning. So, I think that's really important to note because, again, Ms. Regan's comment can be interpreted as if we were suggesting it, which is why we needed to clarify that we weren't. But it's not an interpretation that the district gives children the minimum number of minutes. And more recess, actually, to Emily's point, more recess, less time on learning actually codifies learning. It solidifies it. Every single bit of cognitive research supports that. And so there is definitely a pathway, whether it's through added recess or whatnot, there is a pathway to do this that will benefit students, will benefit learning, and will benefit educators.
We're good?
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
So, did you guys get the big packet?
Yes.
Yes.
Before we get to the big packet, I think we have something that we were already pretty close on that I think we're going to maybe hopefully lock in today. Sure. Emily, you're doing that? Oh, thank you. You're the best. It doesn't have all the colors. I'm sorry. I made it on the fly. So there's not the blue and the red and everything, but,
Because it wasn't Dina made.
it was not. Dina's much more organized than I.
Oh, right.
This is for all.
I'll come around.
This is the bereavement language for common proposals. We went back and forth last time. Sounds like we were very close. You discussed, you didn't want any language to suggest you're limiting it to one, God forbid, 1 year, but one deceased member. We came back with this because I think this reflects what both sides have been saying. So I'm hoping this is, after you review it, this could put this one to a tentative agreement. 5 days not to be deducted from sick or personal leave shall be granted in the event of each of the following individuals' death within the unit member's family: father, mother, son, daughter, step-parent, spouse, grandparent, sibling, grandchildren, mother-in-law, father-in-law, daughter-in-law, son-in-law. In the event of a miscarriage, individuals the unit member is legally responsible for, any person living in the immediate household, or any other person approved by the superintendent. 2 days are allowed for the death of any other close relative, including aunt, uncle, and in-laws, or close friends, not to be deducted from sick or personal leave. Now, like I said, I made this 20 minutes ago, so that's why it doesn't have all the color coding and such. We're not trying to be sneaky. I think the things we changed was the up to being taken away, along with trying to find exact language in that clause that nails that it's not, once again, hopefully it doesn't happen, but 1 death per year.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
But that is that. I don't know if you have any immediate questions or anything.
No, I'm seeing my colleagues on this side nodding, so TA, baby.
Woo! Hey. All right, nice, okay, great. We have some TAs too, which is exciting, okay, and I'm trying to think of how to go through this, but I'm gonna just kind of we'll start with the common ones we haven't talked about yet.
Yep.
Some of these we're just gonna hold just because, as you can imagine, we had a 3-hour pre-meeting, just because putting everything together, it took a lot of doing each of the best, short of doing yarn.
We're yawning too.
Anyways, short of doing that, it took a lot of work. But, so we still have somewhat more discussion.
Sure.
Subcontract, we've already touched upon. The Protection Act language, we actually are willing, we are willing to TA A, B, and C along with the Section 2 change. I think I'm on the wrong one, but there we are, okay. The Section 5 is where we want to talk a bit more, because we hear you, we totally understand what the point you made either last meeting or the meeting after, or meeting before rather, but the point you said was you just don't want someone to be out indefinitely, and they're not losing pay, and it almost begs the question, when are they coming back, right? I think what we talked about was, is there any sort of short-term language, and you don't have to have an answer for me right now, I know this would probably take a caucus, is there any short-term language we'd be willing to agree to? And hear me on why. I think we really didn't imagine this for long-term leave, but we can totally understand why your minds went to long-term leave. We're thinking about, there are situations when members have to be out for a few days, if not a week or 2 weeks, more short-term. That's, I think, what we're really thinking of right now, and we totally respect your concern for the long term. We're just asking you if you would entertain some sort of counter to fit a short term.
We can talk about it. I just point out a couple of things. You know that if you're injured at work, whether it's assault or an accident, there's workers' comp that gives you a safety net, so to speak. And of course, the sick leave bank is available if someone doesn't have enough sick days to cover their time recuperating and convalescing. But beyond that, we can certainly talk about your question.
Excellent. Okay, the parental leave we're going to go through right now, and by that I mean skip for now. We'll talk about that in a bit. Bereavement we just did, which is very exciting. And then going down the way, just making sure, sorry, I'm looking at us and then yours. I think everything else so far we are holding, just so we can discuss a little further for the common proposals, unless I'm missing anything glaring on my team at all. Give everyone a minute just to review, but I think we needed to just talk about some more of those things a little more detailed. Now, going to our proposals, I do want to tell you we are dropping one altogether, and that would be the SLP proposal. That was proposal number, sorry, they're all, proposal number 7, student learning providers. We're just going to withdraw that completely.
Okay.
I'm just giving you all a moment to find that.
Could I just ask next time, maybe if you could number the pages? What page are we on if we counted them?
Yeah, we could do that.
Bottom of 15 and then top of 16.
Two, bottom of 50.
It's under U number 7.
There's a U number 7 right now.
Yeah.
That's right.
U number 7, Article 8, personal, yeah. Okay, so you're withdrawing that?
We're withdrawing that, yeah.
Okay.
Now, I think before we move on, I think we just wanted to kind of, one thing, we're not holding on all these other ones. Right now, I think I know that there were some responses that were verbally said were rejections or holds.
Yeah.
Is there a way we could just get written response to all that so then we can go from there? We're not like stubbornly holding on everything exactly as it is. We just want to kind of have in writing response to everything. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. All right. I think then if that's the case for most of our proposals, we're just waiting on either responses of some type. We did have a counter for the coaches though. So let's go to the coaches. Let me find that for us all.
U6?
U6, right before U7.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, what page? Section, it's,
12.
Oh, okay, I just,
yeah, academic coaches, district response.
I got it.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
So we made a proposal for our instructional coaches. You then responded, and we have countered your counter. So you can see that under TTA response 31924.
Yes, bottom of page 14.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Bottom page 14, excellent. Okay, so we understand with letter A to section 10 that you might want to, for instance, not all these 3 different types of coaches existed, so we're willing to agree to your scratching out of that, to give that managerial prerogative to extend if need be. So that would delete letter A and make a new letter A. In regards to your response to our new A, we said the coach's role requires a flexible schedule to meet with, support, and collaborate with teachers. Schedules will be developed, adapted, and communicated by the appropriate director in collaboration with the coach. It's not terribly far off yours. We wanted to make sure we did add, though, along with support, to meet with and collaborate with teachers. We find this to be a pretty important thing, especially, before a lesson, after a lesson, to allow that discussion to happen.
If we just want to pause for a second so I can explain my crazy a little bit more. If you didn't read the stuff at the top, basically any TTA proposals are in red, school committee proposals are in blue, and anything that was kind of changed from the previous version is highlighted. So whether it's yours or ours, because also crossing out only goes one color, it doesn't. You can't do multiple colors as much as I wanted to. But I tried to make it as clear as possible that like anything that's highlighted yellow, that's pretty much where we're going. So hopefully we can get to less yellow
Yes.
by the end of all these.
Okay, all right, so that helps. Okay, good.
The new letter B, we heard you on the evaluator discussion, so we countered, but we understand your rationale. Supervision and evaluations are completed by the appropriate evaluator. We changed that from director for the scenarios that I think it was Lori who laid that out. Academic coaches will be included in the definition of an educator in Appendix E. We wanted to make sure that was clearly stated there. Appendix E, for those who don't know, is our teacher evaluation appendix of the contract. And any new adaptation to Appendix B would be negotiated with the TTA. Going down the way, the new letter C, former letter D, just making sure we are all good
Pretty
here.
much kept all of theirs.
I think we kept C. We agreed to your C change.
D they had agreed to.
We agreed to, you agreed to our D change. Sorry, and then I think we added a little bit to E though, right?
I'm trying to figure out what.
Okay, and it says, in lieu of conference nights, open house, and student extra help sessions, academic coaches shall attend meetings that are out of the regular contractual day. Outside of the contractual hours shall be equivalent to the time spent by teachers in the aforementioned meetings. What that basically is there to say is that it doesn't give an unlimited amount of hours for out-of-school meetings. It's to make sure that that cumulative time is not exceeded for our coaches as it's not for our teachers. But that allows more flexibility on both the coaches and their supervisors and on how to schedule, when to schedule and stuff.
That makes sense.
And we kept your cutting of A, B, and C. We felt that was represented above, so that's good. Letter F, coaches may be required to work additional hours in the summer as agreed upon with their supervisor. This work may include the development, preparation, and facilitation of PD or training as agreed upon between the coach and their supervisor. Work may also include curriculum revision and development and any other work as agreed upon between the coach and their supervisor. Coaches will be paid their Appendix B hourly rate. So I think we combined a few things there, but it's really to address those summer hours.
Yeah, I believe you had stricken that whole section, and so we put back the things that we thought were important to the language there.
So if it's crossed out in yellow,
We just crossed it out.
Hold on.
Yeah,
italicized and bolded, no.
No.
yeah, right?
If it's crossed out and yellow, you're bringing it back.
If it's crossed out in yellow, we are taking out that, right? We're striking it.
Okay.
Gotcha.
But the yellow that is red
Yeah.
is because you had taken it out, we're putting it back.
Right, so that's coming back.
Okay, so you want that back in?
Gotcha.
You'll get it.
Remember?
You'll get it.
I think I did.
Everyone's gonna be in my brain.
I will tell you, 5 minutes after the meeting, though, I'm going to forget what the system was.
I wrote it down.
but, Yeah. Okay.
This is how I feel about high school schedules, by the way.
This is very helpful,
I
though,
don't
and it
even
really
know.
is. Once I-
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, sorry. Donna.
Okay, got you. All right.
Okay.
Oh, I see, okay.
G, academic coaches may be required to plan and facilitate professional development on scheduled contractual PD and workshop days. The district will provide coaches with at least 30-day notice before the date of presentation to have adequate time to prepare. You know, for our coaches here, 30 days, I mean, they are meeting with teachers all day, every day. This gives them that time to know, okay, I need to really barter this time to create this presentation to prepare myself. So that's why we thought that was important there.
Let me just jump in.
Yes.
Because your language was every effort will be made, and we just think that that shouldn't be the effort. The effort should be it's going to happen, right?
Letter H, coaches shall collaborate with the classroom teacher. Coaches shall not be used as a substitute when a teacher is absent. And we did strike coaches will support long-term substitutes as needed. We had a rationale for that one. Did we have, was it just, I think that it was represented somewhere above. Was that true?
Yeah, we thought that coaches shall collaborate with classroom teachers kind of takes that into consideration. So obviously, they would be supporting long-term substitutes because in that case, they're a classroom teacher, and that's just part of their role, supporting
Right.
classroom teachers.
So you think our language was redundant?
In a sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so hurt.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
And then letter I, and I think letter I was agreed to
Yeah.
on both sides.
Yeah, okay.
So if you notice what we did, there were a few little important things that we felt need to be kept, but we also tried to consolidate a little bit to kind of reach some of your needs and our needs and all that stuff,
Yep,
so.
appreciate
Any
that.
questions on that overall proposal?
No.
We're good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. And then which
Did we
one?
skip some at the beginning?
Which one?
Union 1, we're holding on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And now we're going to go back to this one. Holding?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, perfect. All right. So this is, if we want to go back with me to U number 1, which is open house, which is, I think, page 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 6 going on to 7. This is one of those ones that we both have proposals on. And I think at this point, I think we need to see where, if at all, the elementary time language goes anywhere before we can even start talking about this. It's almost like that one might unlock creative ways to address this one. So we're not holding to say that's our last or anything like that. We're holding just because we feel like the elementary time needs to be figured out so then we can kind of wrap our minds around where do we go from here. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay.
And then we had Union 2.
And then U number 2, okay. So we went to we had your response from the 15th, and this was in regards to the half day, same rationale. We're holding right now because we need to figure out the other early release half day language. But we do have, and Jill's gonna speak specifically on special ed overall if we have time tonight, but for us, the PLC groups are very important. This was one of the big things that, frankly, last time, we reached an agreement, but we did not get some of the dire needs of special educators and unified arts specialists to have their own PLCs. But we'll address that all later. Like we said, we're holding now with the rationale that we're kind of focused on that elementary prep time language before we can then unlock everything else. All right, and now we're going to go along the way. I think our next
Union
one's...
5.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I have the table of contents, you don't. The transfers.
Oh, okay, excellent, okay. So we would be willing to accept the first part of your counter, but maintain the changes to the rest. So the first part we're willing to accept, and Dina, walk me through this just so I'm sure, is this part right here, correct?
Yeah, it's on the next page. But so basically you had proposed to include voluntary transfer to another position, and then the way in which, like the protocol in which it is submitted, we can accept that. But the rest of the article, we're looking to maintain our original proposal, which is there, it's just not highlighted. So we would propose that this would be all the changes to that language.
So just so I know, on Union 5, you're accepting the first chunk of the Section 2 language?
Correct.
But the next piece you're maintaining as original?
Correct.
Okay.
So through the 2 bullets, basically, the numbered bullets? right?
Yes.
Okay.
Got it, okay. All right.
And our next one is...
We did the coaches, right?
Yeah, coaches is all good.
We did the SLPs.
Back to you, Dave.
Sorry, Dina, just one more thing.
Yeah.
So after the numbered bullets in our response, there's another line that's crossed out with a copy to the teacher's principal stating the assignment preferred and reasons for the transfer. But then on your 319, that sentence is stricken out. It's not there. So I just want to show you.
It's in one.
It's in one. So your 319 response starts with such request should be made.
Yeah.
And on the page before, there's a whole sentence before that we removed.
Oh, he's talking about this sentence.
We were agreeing with that as well, right? Just want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Yeah, because it's up above.
Okay.
It just kind of, it moved somewhere else. So in number 1, where it says submit a written
Yep.
request,
Yep.
it's
It's
the same
redundant.
current language. I just
Okay.
put it in a different spot.
Yep. Understood.
All right, going along the way. Here, next one's the personal leave. if I'm not mistaken.
Class size, you ate was.
All right. Well, no,
No, we didn't have, we don't have one on class size.
Are we in touch with Rosie?
yeah, we're not,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it
Sorry,
would be
everyone.
Union 18.
All right, so we're going to Union 18 then, and this is the temporary leave. All right. So, in regards to the front line with such observations as religion, we're holding on that. With personal days, we have a creative counter that we ask you to entertain. We came down to 4 personal days, but then we added the sentence at the end. 1 unused personal day may be carried over to the next year, up to a total of 5 personal days. We have a little carryover language, which we know some other, locals do have that right. But what this does is you're not burning 5 every year. You might hold one over and only use 4, or maybe only use 3, but carry one over for the next year. That was our rationale with that. And then along with the way, with our association leave, we countered ourselves with cutting it in half, 170 association days. Within these association days, the MTA assigned number of MTA annual meeting delegates shall be reserved for such purpose. So we cut it in half, and then we also want to make sure we reserve the appropriate amount of days, because that does change with our union's membership number, to ensure that we have some of those days saved and allotted for the annual spring delegates meeting that's usually in April or May.
Is that a one-day meeting or?
It's a weekend.
It's a weekend,
Yeah.
okay.
It's usually one school day.
One school day
Friday
plus
is
the weekend.
Friday, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And then we did have a response for Union 19. Yeah, and we're going to maintain right now for that time, for our original proposal. Okay, the next section, and we're then going to go to your responses, because we have some TAs on your end. We hear you on the financial aspect, and we want to bargain in good faith and continue to bargain in good faith from today. For this time right now, okay, and you're going to see what we put in the parenthesis under the regular salary. We came to 7% for next year, but the extra time with the membership is a non-starter. And I'm just being straight up here with the extra half hour a day. Now, does that mean we're done and we're at 788? Absolutely not. But I think right now it's almost like one of those keys that unlocks us to other aspects on what to negotiate and what not to negotiate on. Do we have any questions on our end on that? Okay. Good.
You did do it, just your blue ink summary of our response is not correct. In years 2 and 3, it was 3% across the board.
Okay, I was trying to go.
No, I know it probably, I know you just, yeah.
Tiny
yeah.
little grid there. Okay, so it's 3 for all steps.
Yeah, across the board.
Yeah, in years 2 and 3, it goes 3.5, 3, 3. For
3, 3, 3.
One
Correct.
step, one step.
Correct.
I know that you were trying to get this together, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that at this juncture, because.
I will make sure I change that.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay.
And please, obviously, I know you will, but review this
Yeah.
offline, and we can always
Yeah,
make sure any
we'll collaborate on
errors at all.
a common document, yeah.
Okay, now we're gonna, so Dina has your original proposals and then the amended ones on where we left off last time. And first of all, I just want to say that if you go to, and I don't have the page number, but it would be the one in regards to our guidance counselors.
Yeah.
And adjustment counselors, your counter you gave us, we're willing to TA that.
Okay.
Just on the school's counselor
School
section.
counselors.
Schools
Yeah,
counselor,
that-
exactly, yes, exactly.
One very long proposal.
Yeah.
So.
They actually, yeah, okay.
Now, other aspects of your proposal, we're not necessarily holding on all of these saying no. We're just, I think, Dean and I talked, I think Dina's done such a good job reorganizing everything. And I think we want to continue to reorganize even some of your proposals, almost like splitting up what, your different proposals and such, so that we can almost make a grid to respond to that. And some of these are kind of intertwined with each other. So the ones we could, individually say, absolutely, we agree to it, we're doing that right now. But then obviously we're open to negotiate much more of this bigger proposal. Okay, so going on to the next way, okay?
Stipends.
Stipends, okay. Okay, so down to stipends, we're willing to agree to the, okay. The first one is in regards to Appendix B. While it's anticipated that Appendix B duties shall be performed outside of contractual teacher hours, there may be times where Appendix B roles will be necessary to be carried out during the school day, subject to the principal approval. You know, I think, like, obviously, there's an implicit understanding that principals last page, very last page.
Just go to the back.
The back cover of the book.
Back page.
Oh, yes, yes,
We got
yes,
it, we
yes.
got it.
It'll be so much easier next time, I promise.
No, it's good.
So this is in regards to the academic language, okay? And I think Jill can best speak upon this.
So I just was looking for a little clarification on this. If I am asking for permission once for the whole year, or if I'm gonna call Andy and be like, hey, can I work on the teacher schedule today during my prep? Hi Andy, good morning. I was wondering if today I could plan tomorrow's PLC, and then call the next day and ask, I'm wondering if I could draft an email to my department today. So we're just kind of looking at a little clarification if this is like I need to call every time or email every time I want to do something outside of during the contractual hours, or if this is like a one-time encompassing kind of thing.
I will postulate, but I need confirmation from my team. Anything that you decide to do during your prep or your lunch, go for it. However, if you're seeking to do things during other times that you're assigned to be somewhere, directed by the administration, PLC, instructional time, I'm sure there's other things. Obviously, you'd have to work that out with your principal, because you are being paid the stipend for work that you would be doing extra. I think that, I don't know, does that make sense to everybody?
Can you give an example of when that would potentially happen, or if it would ever potentially
There might have been occasions, as I recall, I think folks gave anecdotes of during instructional, they got release time for certain things that had to happen during the workday. There was some, like blood drive or something. Did someone give an example of that?
There is an example of that, like when we have the blood drive, our interactive advisor gets permission
to
supervise that activity.
Right, yeah. And if they need release time, you work it out with your principal, right?
I assume that she does.
Yeah, okay. Did you, I think,
Yeah, I
Mr.
was
Malloy?
just going to say, based on those circumstances, that's what already happens.
Okay, then, well, I think what we were trying to make clear was stipended work it's work that's performed outside of the contractual. I know I'm being redundant here.
Could I maybe, I'm following what you're saying right now. So are you almost saying, I know this is not the exact language, but like release time from teaching, like other duties as approved by the principal may occur if it's necessary for the academic position?
Yeah, well, I guess I should ask you this. Why were you resistant to this language?
It opens the door to a wide array of like interpretations that one could have on this.
And the one simple concern was, what if the principal's out and we make what we think is a professional judgment call, right? That's best for the kids or the situation.
Yep.
And then somehow it comes back.
Oh, yeah.
Something
And
like
that's,
that.
obviously, those circumstances would have to be looked at in the context,
I might be wrong, but I thought the spirit was to identify that while you might look at Appendix B things as being outside of the day, there are times when they are during the day. Like, I don't know, a field trip, a mock trial, I don't know what people might go on. And then the blood drive was a good example. So I thought that it was kind of the reverse of what you're thinking as opposed to.
That makes sense.
That spirit sounds good. I think the concern from our way in the language, we can talk about how we would, change that. But the way the language is now is I would be giving John a phone call all of the time, especially during dance seasons. And it would be taken away from what he has to do, what I have to do. So as long as that's the spirit, I think we could probably, talk it out in caucus, but
Organizes the school dances.
yeah, the language as it's written
I
is
didn't know
concerning, but if that's the spirit, then great.
So, taking that example, are you organizing, doing that work within the contractual workday.
So
to
it would
organize-
depend on like specifically what we're doing, but like selling tickets would have to be done during the contractual workday.
So-
So while I'm on lunch duty, I will, John could be in the lunch, but I might go and just make sure that the tickets are set, right? The cash is done.
So you're multitasking.
Well, in a sense, but according to this language, I would have to ask John specifically, and I don't know if that's really worth John's
Well,
time.
John might say to you, I approve. Don't ask me again. You got my approval for the rest of the year, in perpetuity even.
Hey, I mean, I would love that in writing, but,
And Rose, so to go off your point, I totally understand.
I think we're all coming around at this from different,
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And, I think John would say that, like, in regards.
Why are you bothering me, Josh?
Still bothering me, which is great. And like, I think Andy would do it too. And virtually most principals would do that, but this language does open the door.
well, yes.
That makes sense.
Yes,
It's
well,
a semantic thing
Yes.
at this point, but it's a very important semantic.
understood. I've heard stories, maybe not in this district, but where someone was actually, I don't know if it was an extracurricular, like musical something, they were using their instructional time to carry out those duties at the sacrifice of their instruction, that lesson. And that obviously was something that was not allowed. And I'm not saying that would happen here, but I think we're just trying to be clear. That's all.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, we all good with that? And then with the two of the three, we're TAing 2 of the 3 name changes.
Yeah.
The change from detention supervisor to restorative justice coordinator is not a rejection on changing the name. I think we understand the spirit of where the district's coming with this, but the current name, restorative justice coordinator, that seems like it could really open a whole new set of things that frankly might require a lot of different types of training than they already currently have, and change the nature of what that looks like. So while I'm happy to collaborate and brainstorm names of what might be going in the direction I think the school committee and the district are going for, this current name is just, I don't know.
Too much?
Yeah, too much, yeah.
How about go to your room and think about what you've done? That was kind of the whole, feels, that's kind of, yeah. The district was aiming for a more, like I say, teaching
I get what you're saying, yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
punitive.
So we understand that. We do understand that that's the way like most districts are going, but to break it down, to be the detention person is, there might be like a reflection sheet the kid fills out, but for the most part, we're sitting in this room together. But to be a coordinator means that like it implies that perhaps I'm planning or implementing something, and that then implies that I was trained to implement or do that thing. And then restorative justice itself is much more, if you actually practice it like to a T, it is much more involved than what detention is. And so it's not as simple as just like changing the name. It literally is a different thing in practice. And so that's what we're worried about, is that changing the name will then invite all these other new things that will come about.
And they don't feel equipped without training.
Right, or it's almost like, say you run detention right now, and then we change the name to this, and you're just like let's do detention again, and then you show up and they're like, here's restorative justice, and you're like, I don't know what this is. So we don't want people being blindsided either.
Got it. All right, we can certainly talk about that and come up with something that I hope works for everybody.
So that, there's a lot going on right now, but I think we did a pretty good job being succinct with most of this. I think between now and April 2nd, what could be good is we kind of do lockdown responses from the district on the rest of our proposals. So that way we can then talk and say what can be done, right? But that's where, it's exciting. We've made some TAs, we've made some pretty good progress, pretty good counters on both sides, which is great. And I think once we kind of get this even more cleaned up, and once we have official responses on everything in writing, we can then kind of start to make even better gains.
Take away the yellow. I like that. I like that visual. So every week.
We want less,
hopefully we'll
less
have
yellow
less-
as we go along. That's the goal.
Good.
And more TA.
Yeah, okay.
I'd
Anything
actually
from the
like
committee
to
side?
ask, I know we have a few minutes left. I wasn't here 3 years ago when this was all happening behind closed doors and whatnot. But from what I've heard, the TTA brought forward for at least the teacher contract, roughly 5 proposals, right? Obviously, here now, flash forward 3 years later, you guys have come forth with 21, right? I know you've stricken one and you have a few common. We had obviously a few of ours as well. How do you, and I'll direct this to you, Connor, I suppose, how do you feel that this is progressing, 7 meetings in now? I'm curious for your thoughts overall, because I feel like there's been movement, but I also know that, we're 7 meetings in and, we're trying to, get to something before a contract expires, right? And 90 minutes, although it's a good amount of time, it feels like, there's a lot of various stories that are being shared and anecdotal things that are being shared, and I think all those things are important, but it's also taking time away, too, to get things over the hump. So I guess I'd be curious to know if there's anything that you think that we could be doing differently as we approach, the next several meetings here.
Right, yeah, so we've had 6 meetings so far, and I would say they've all been productive, good discussion, some good banter along the way, right? And I would say that, a lot, the first few were simply getting things out and discussing, but I would like to say that I think you can tell that some things are very important to us, right? And I can tell you all do appreciate the anecdotal, proof we're giving here. And in the way that's just negotiating. We're trying to just show you we're not doing this to be stubborn or whatnot. We need you to understand almost the full totality of where we stand with this, because we do have a lot of information we're willing to share, and we understand you have perspectives too. We want to hear yours, but we also really want you to hear ours. So I would say that I feel like we're making decent headway right now. We have 2 meetings in April. We'll likely have a few after in May and June. It's going to be warm soon, which is very exciting. But I would say, especially even this meeting particularly, was rather upbeat, and amicable with a lot of progress. Would anyone like to go off of that with me, or are we?
Well, I do think that we keep hacking away at things. And to your point, Rich, about, we have presented this year, if you're looking numerically, a lot of things. Although, as a slight counter to that, your initial proposal about the workday kind of encompassed like a quarter of the contract. So that was hefty. In numbers, it was a little bit, but it was quite hefty. But I will say, we have tried a lot between that contract and this one to listen to members about how can you, what can you be given in the contract that is going to help your kids and help your day. And I will say, maybe, trying to do that on our own, we might have come up with 4 things, but hearing it from the masses, we came up with more. And they were very helpful in putting together language and things like that. And we would be a little derelict if we didn't then put that forward to you. And part of that is actually just a consequence of us being democratic and listening to the people who have to sit here with us and watch. But I do think that we are making steady progress. As last time was my first go around, and I will say it felt much more grudging through the mud, if I could be polite about it. But this one, I do think we are chipping away more and more.
Keep moving things towards.
Yes.
Perspective as well. I think
Settlement.
there are a couple, I think the word would be keystones, right? There's a couple keystones that, if we can, in the coming meetings that we've already planned, if we can agree to agreement on them in some form or fashion, that will unlock a whole host of other flexibility on our end, and I think flexibility on your end with regards to other aspects. So it does seem like there's a bit of a sand in the gears a little bit, but I think the lubrication is a couple of those key proposals that will again, allow us to be flexible.
Yep.
And I think allow your side to be flexible.
We hear that, okay.
Could we ask the same question back to you? For how you think it's going, could we share how you think it's going?
It's been, I think, to Dina's point, it's been kind of challenging to keep on top of, there's a lot of ideas flying around, but we have I think we've understood each other. We've spent the time understanding each other, which I think is not only important to settling the contract, but what lies afterwards. I think it's good to understand each other. So in that sense, it's good. I think we really, really want you guys to have a settled contract by the last day of school. Really, really want that. So with your ideas in mind, and we understand what you're saying, if we can kind of get our priorities all kind of rowing in the same direction, I think we'll pick up the pace. I do think so.
I'd like to say, I appreciate your patience as we've kind of put out different options to solve some problems that I think we all see as mutual problems. And they may come across as, insulting or, just really off the cuff. But they truly are coming from a place of wanting to find solutions and wanting to give you the tools that you need and really trying to support the district in doing the job that they're doing. So legitimately coming from that place.
To that point, Bridget, I'm sorry to put this on, but I did really appreciate when you guys came to the school and followed around, and I will say the staff of the Win really appreciated it and all the questions you asked and things, and so we do very much recognize your attempt to understand our day. We know that you're not in schools, right? And it is kind of its own weird world to live in. And so we do really, really appreciate that. And everybody was really excited to see you there and talk to you and answer all your questions and things like that. So I do think that was a very, very positive experience.
Appreciate it.
Certainly on our end, and I know on your end.
I agree with Emily too, last time was my first time in negotiations. And I actually feel hopeful. I have hope.
Okay.
And I feel heard. And it was really nice to see you guys.
No, I feel the same way. I think if I was trying to be just constructive, because Aaron, you asked a question about, 90 minutes seems tough, if I'm being honest. It seems squeezed, it seems sort of forced, and but I also understand that everyone's had a long day. Coming into the evenings. So I don't know necessarily what the answer is, because I agree. I don't know, Roseanne, I think you might have said it, we do want to get to that contract by the last day of school. That's our goal. I know that was what we shared in ground rules, right? We said that, maybe some people were thinking wishful thinking, that's our goal. Will we achieve it? Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done, and we hope we can get there,
So are you kind of asking us to maybe think about a different time frame?
I wasn't, but
Okay.
I mean, certainly, I don't want to speak for Bridget or the rest of the team up here, but I mean, I would certainly be amenable to hearing that if there was. I know at one point there was a conversation about doing the two units together. I don't know, I don't think that's necessarily, I don't necessarily agree with that, but then what else do we do? Do we be here till 9 o'clock at night? So I don't necessarily, but maybe we do. Maybe it is a 2.5 to 3 hour session for each unit. I'm not suggesting that we do it on the same night. I don't know. Because again, I do want to, someone said it, we feel like there's been movement, and I feel like there's been movement, but maybe it's just small right now. And so.
That's fair.
How do we we get a lot to cover still.
So, yeah, I think just thinking about efficiency might be a good.
I might make a suggestion that may be helpful or it may not, but maybe one of the things that we might do is at the end of each session, we kind of think about some of the overarching themes of things, whether it's we're going to go over common proposal 3 and 4 next week, ESP proposal, 2 and 6, right? Let's make an agenda for the next time so that at least our teams can kind of talk about those specific things and maybe have a little bit more of a time to to think about it instead of that 15-minute caucus. You guys are
Fair.
trying to figure out my gibberish.
I think that's a good
And I'd be
idea.
happy to, like, we could even email after both teams have pre-caucus meetings
Yeah.
and say, you know, because we're kind of thinking, what are you thinking? And we could organize that ahead of time,
Yeah,
so.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Well, thank
All
you.
right, thank you, guys. Well, motion to adjourn.
Yep, adjourn at 7:44 PM.
Thank you.
Everybody.
So